Come on. All right. Welcome to the Redeye stream number 236. It's debate night, and we're going to be talking transhumanism. Well, I won't be, at least for the first hour. I'm going to hand it off to my buddy Cabbage Patch here. He is the moderator for tonight. Announce the team, sir, and take over. I'll see you in an hour.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, tonight, well, it's we're not quite sure whether it's the second or the third debate. So there's a debate for another day. We can call it the two-thirds debate, maybe. I don't know. Is transhumanism the future of humanity? That is the proposition. On behalf of that proposition is Quinn and Mr. Oz, and the opposition to that proposition is 40 Ounce and Shirati. So this is interesting. We have a member of a single family in opposing camps. So whoever wins, we're guaranteed a happy Christmas in somebody's household. So let's kick this off with Mr. Quinn. If you would like to begin your introduction, and you get 5 minutes, I'll notify you at 3 minutes, and then at 4, and then obviously ask you to wrap up if you're okay with that.
Yep, to be honest, I'm generally not going to use that much time, but I'm good.
Okay, all yours.
Right. Now, the argument with the whole transhumanism thing, the problem is I agree it's a bad idea. The problem is I also completely agree it is going to happen, and people need to understand this. After all, think of it this way. Once you've had the cybernetic implants, you're better, faster, smarter, tougher, better at your job, and let's be fair, who wouldn't want a piece of cybernetics where you could turn Shirati's voice off and not actually have to listen to her moan? Come on, people, let's be honest here. That is one reason why to have cybernetics right there. I hand over my time.
All right, first off, fuck you, Quinn.
Hang on a second. Let's do this professionally, if you wouldn't mind. All right. That was that was a lot quicker than I had anticipated. Yep. But never mind. Do you want to carry over that time into your main rebuttal? You know, your main body, yeah.
Yep, I'll put it into storage. Thank you.
Okay, good. Alrighty. Now, Mrs. Shirati, would you like to take the stage, please?
Yep. First of all, the definition of transhumanism, I just want everybody in the chat or whoever's listening to know it's the belief or theory that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by means of science and technology. And I want people to really think what really makes you human. Is it the blood in your body? Is it the muscles? Maybe your tattoos or your piercings? Well, what I think makes you human is your brain. And I really hope to prove my stance on transhumanism by proving that your brain is what makes you human. Transhumanism is not good for humanity because the inevitability to becoming a hive mind is not only scary, but for those of you who are old enough to think about this, you're gonna lose sex because you'll become part of what is known as a singularity. to think about it like that. I'm done.
Okay, again, quick introductions. I was expecting more expanse, but no, it's all good. It's all good. Okay, 40, would you like to do your introduction, please? We know that you've been preparing it diligently.
Yes, so diligently. So, my opening isn't based on any kind of articles or studies or anything, but something that's rather easily digestible. A video game, ironically. So, let me tell you guys about the video game called Deus Ex. Now, this is also kind of from memory, so I apologize for any narrative discrepancies. So, in the year 1995, a scientist named Hugh Darrow is hurt in a skiing accident. Soon after, he founds a robotics lab that creates robotic limbs that are to be implanted into the human body. There's only one problem. Unlike Germany, the human body naturally rejects any foreign objects that are artificially implanted into it. So to remedy this problem, a company called VersaLife creates a drug called neuropozyne to combat the body's immune response system to the implants. One of the downsides is that the users of the augmentations regularly need this drug in order to survive, turning those individuals into basically dependents of this corporation. But in the meantime, anti-augmentation groups start to pop up, like Purity First and Humanity Front, for instance, which are all in moral opposition to augmentation users, and this creates a very large social economic rift in society, and riots start to pop up. And this is one of the main themes around the game as well. Now, later on in the game's mythos, a virus starts to spread with anyone who uses these augmentations. Anyone with body modifications start to suffer from some of the effects of the malfunctioning body parts, if you will. Luckily for all those people with malfunctioning limbs, there's a group of people that just so happens to have the proper software update to fix their ailments. As the player goes on through the storyline, they later find out that it's part of a grand conspiracy to control the world, essentially through hacking everyone with the use of this software upgrade. And they will be connected to a kind of centralized hive mind. So in the world of Deus Ex, there's many secret societies that have their own agendas and see augmented humans as a kind of perfect pawn on a chessboard through which to execute their plans. And really, in just this brief summary, this highlights many of the biggest problems with the concepts of transhumanism. And on top of it, I've always been rather skeptical of a lot of the utopian ideologies, such as communism, anarcho-capitalism, and fascism. In my view, transhumanism promotes a worldview that's no different from the aforementioned ideologies. It's the promise to escape the clutches of death and disease and suffering that, well, it's ultimately a pipe dream, I think. And that's all. I'm finished.
Okay, so again, you got we're moving time over into the next part. Oz, do you have 5 minutes to spare?
All right. First, yes, the definition of transhumanism is using technology to enhance the human condition, whether that be through cybernetics, bionics, genetic engineering. The eventual goal for some is the singularity of being able to transfer consciousness into a machine. That's not the goal for everyone, but the initial transhumanism idea is to end the limitations that we have as humans through evolution. Evolution is a process where naturally more advantageous genes are passed on, usually through a process of environmental pressure. Humanity no longer has an environmental pressure to force evolution. There's no natural selection. There's no real need for humans to select one trait over another, which is why natural human evolution has hit a stalling point. Technology is the only real option to move past this stumbling block. Not only that is the bionics and things of those natures will correct issues that people have. All of these people who have lost limbs, who have defects, it'll also end things like Alzheimer's. They've already been producing artificial hippocampuses. And all of these things are steps towards an eventual future where humans aren't what we are currently. But it brings up an issue of what makes us human, whether it be our biology, our interactions with other people, our societies. And all of these things are, in and of themselves, evolutions. Society itself is an evolution from apes to Homo sapiens. Without society, we wouldn't care about these things. There would be no concern about morality or anything else, or our existence beyond our physical bodies. These are all societal concepts that we have developed to combat our fear of death and the unknown. And transhumanism gives us the opportunity to control our futures more so than anything else. And humans have always used technology to alter the world around them. And we have finally hit a point in our technology where we can actually target specific things that we want to advance. Because if you want to talk about what technology is used to augment humans already, prosthetic limbs have been around for thousands of years. Glasses have been around for hundreds of years. Even making fire, sharpening a stick, these are things that humans have done to be able to interact with the world and shape the world in ways that nature has not provided us. Humans don't have claws. We don't have sharp teeth. We're not strong. Our brains are what sets us apart from every other animal. And through our use of technology, we are outpacing what nature could do for us. So, and I think that's good for an introduction on that. So.
Excellent. Well, yeah, you at least you used your time, wisely. Well, you've still got 30 seconds to carry over, so that's good. Right. So now we move on to the main crux of your arguments. Mr. Quinn, would you like to present the full force that you want to put forward on this?
Sure, no problem. Simply put, with the whole transhumanism, if you take it down just to its base level, it's humanity attempting to improve humanity. Now, whether it's done by cybernetic implants or whether it's done by bio implants, doesn't matter. The point is we are still attempting to evolve, still trying to make ourselves just that bit better. But that's not its only use. Please remember the medical use of this. Technically, any time you have any sort of artificial device put in you, you are starting on the road towards transhumanism. Even if you're not planning on going too far, you've still got an implant. Look at people that get injured, they have their limbs crushed. We nowadays actually have artificial limbs that are almost good enough. Would you honestly really tell me that even if you don't like transhumanism, would you want to be the person that stops, for instance, a military veteran had his legs blown off in the war, Your argument would stop them getting prosthesis to fix their injuries. Now,
Well, Jensen,
Yes?
I know I'm not supposed to interrupt at all,
No,
but
no, no, no. We're not in the
here's-
debate. No, we're not in the debate yet. That's still to come.
I'm
That's
posing a
after
question.
we
I'm
finish this up.
posing a
No,
question.
no, no. Save it. Write it down. Save it. No, save it. Yeah, but that's what happens in the open section. This is where he is now presenting his case.
God damn it, Cabby. I wanted him to elaborate on a certain fact before it passed off.
I don't care. Save the question until we get into the main, into the moderated debate later.
Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Not a problem, mate. Have to wait. The point is where you're willing to actually take transhumanism. Is the beginning the problem, or is it where we're going to get to? Because after all, you can sit there and say, but you're giving up your entire existence. You're just being a brain mapped program. Well, at the end of the day, basically all life is just a machine. The difference is it's organic. We're moving on to inorganic. It's an upgrade. And like I said, I'm not saying that this is going to be good for humanity. What I'm saying is humanity should just understand this is going to happen because too many people are becoming injured. It will become normal to get to get new parts put on. Once new parts are put on, people want upgrades. And that's where the problem starts. Transhumanism is a lovely idea as long as it is in some way monitored and controlled. The problem is how do you monitor or control something like this? Someone else's go.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
you conclude?
Yeah, he did, and
okay. No. Yeah. Doesn't matter. This is still part of the introduction stuff. The questions come later. We have a format for a reason. We agreed the format, and we are not going to deviate from the format. Okay. We go into the 10-minute moderated debate after everyone's had their say. Presented their cases. That's how it works.
I shut up.
We agreed.
I shut up. Move on, Cabby.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Shirati, would you like to put forward the mainstay of your argument, please? Shirati?
Shirati,
Okay,
yoo-hoo.
She's still muted. Move on to 40.
Oh.
She's muted. She's muted.
God
we're getting the
damn
feedback thing again.
Hello?
Hello?
We kept getting the feedback thing.
World's most efficient
Off you
debate.
go.
How the fuck was I giving off feedback? I had myself
Well, you
muted
were.
through
You
my
went now.
cord.
It's all good.
No,
You
I
can go
had to
ahead.
mute you.
Son of a bitch.
Anyway, off you go.
I said transhumanism is all well and good in theory. You got your medical ideas, people are getting arms and legs. Oh, why don't you go a step further and give them new brains? And then, when they die, just reload them and put them into cyborgs. Go a step further, give them mind files. Why don't you scan their brains into the cloud? And then you'll have to go a step further after that, and after transhumanism, we'll give them posthumanism. And everybody will have a hive mind. Only people and robots. And then comes the singularity. And we'll have one giant planet-sized organism. We'll have one single consciousness. will have a consciousness where everybody thinks the same, because everybody will be, well, one single person in essence. They all think the same, they all want the same thing, they'll all be creating the same thing. It's kind of like 40's 1984 books. You think what we tell you to think. You do what we tell you to do. I'm done.
Well, I have to say I'm rather disappointed with all this. Has nobody got any... Come on, meat on the bones. 40, give us a good thrust of your argument.
Oh, it usually comes after or during the debate.
Yes, screaming fast. Yes, but we are doing this professionally. Come on, 40. Get thrusting.
Already? We'll thrust hard and long.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, very deep. So, one of my problems with transhumanism is not necessarily the control of the technology. One of the things that Sharadi had mentioned, and I had mentioned in the opening statement, was essentially the biohacking that takes place, in essence, and the hooking up of everyone into a singularity, a centralized hive mind. Now, while that is something that we should certainly be afraid of, that is something that is well down the road, and that's something that won't come for hundreds of years if you want to be optimistic, and thousands of years if you want to be slightly more pessimistic. That's not something I think we need to worry about at the moment. But one thing that certainly does concern me at the moment is the practicality of the kind of implementation of a lot of these implants that people are considering. So people are considering that, well, we can just give people robotic limbs. We can hook it up to certain parts of their nervous system, to some of the micro muscles that are left after they've lost their arm. Excuse the dog barking. And they will essentially have a robotic limb that is attached to their actual body, and it's not necessarily just a prosthetic. Well, this is something that's concerning to me due to the fact that we haven't yet found out any decent way to medically shut down the immune system to any degree and basically stop the rejection of these limbs from the body, from the host. And this is extremely important, because if you don't stop the immune system's response, then there's a risk of death with the host who has the augmentation. Whether it's a robotic limb or maybe a small microchip in the body or whatever the case might be, if done improperly, if even just the slightest way, if it's done improperly, then the host risks death or major infection, which could lead to death. There's a massive quantity of problems that come along with this. And I think it's also notable to, as Oz stated previously, there is a distinction to be made, I think, with the use of tools versus the use of augmentations. So he mentioned previously the sharpening of a stick, or prosthetic limbs, or glasses, I think were one of the things he mentioned. These are not augmentations. These are not permanently affixed to the human body. When you pick up a stick and sharpen it, your immune system doesn't kick up and then kill you because the stick is not a natural part of the body. This is a tool, ultimately. This is a definition of what we could consider a tool. But an augmentation is far different than that. That is the transforming of a human body into something that's more robotic by nature. And so that is ultimately my biggest problem, is not just the control of the technology, but also what is the immune system's response. We're getting, I think, a little too far ahead of ourselves when we're talking about the prospect of a singularity and centralizing of the individual and elimination of the individual to some respect. Also, one of the other problems that concerns me is the societal problems. So one of the things that is very kind of infamous in the Deus Ex universe that I was talking about previously is the societal and economic divides of individuals within the world of Deus Ex. And one of those divides is economic, right? So if a lot of these implants are only afforded to the rich, well, that will only make the rich more physically and intellectually superior to everyone else around them, creating even larger societal divides that we couldn't possibly imagine. If you think it's bad now, then imagine 15, 20, 30 years down the line when people are 5, 10 times smarter and stronger than they could be in all probability. So on top of that, there's also the moral divide, where you're going to see a lot of societal problems. Imagine the typical Christian conservative over in Tennessee trying to take up arms against his Silicon Valley robotic autocrats that are ruling over him, that are stronger, that are much smarter than he is. You bitch. Okay, I concede. Good job, Cabby.
Okay, no, just letting you know that you're on the last 15 seconds, mate. That's all.
Nope, I will finish it there. It's all good.
Excellent.
Also,
Well,
I do
you have no
apologize
choice.
for the background noise.
Like I said, we have the rules. That's very nice. Very sweet of you. Oz, are you ready, my friend? Oz, you have to unmute yourself too. We had that issue with the feedback. Oz? Gerardi, can you poke your husband, please? Yeah. Yes, there you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Already,
you have 10 minutes plus half a minute. So that's good. You got 5.5 minutes.
There's already hundreds of thousands of people with implants. Titanium screws, plates, pins, rods, all of this. So the idea of rejection of those things is a non-starter, really. And as far as the biological augmentations, there's no reason why those wouldn't be grown from your own cells. So your body would view it as just another part of your body, whether that be replacing, your liver, your heart, your lungs, whatever piece. But that brings up like the ship of Theseus thought experiment. Whether you can replace pieces and still be the same person. The thought experiments with the ship of Theseus is, if you have a ship and you replace plank by plank as the ship gets older, at what point is it no longer the original ship? Just like as a human being, at what point would you consider yourself no longer to be the same person? Is it, could you replace your arms, your legs, heart, liver, lungs, eyes, parts of your brain? At what point would you consider that you are no longer you? Because if you have a continuation from the beginning of your life to where you are currently, you're still the same person. So I don't see that there should be a distinction there. The medical applications for transhumanism is the true value of it. And just like every other argument about technology or society or anything else, there are so many unknowns where someone could take it too far. Just like with the argument about if these things are only available to the rich will continue to hold a higher social standing and be able to get ahead, which is obvious in everyday life that rich people have better access to healthcare. They have better access to education. They have better job prospects. Nothing about society will change fundamentally in that regard, just adding extra advantages. The real question comes in how far you're willing to go with it. It's just like eugenics. Eugenics is a concept of wanting the best genetics to move forward. And we do that with animals, we do that with our crops, and we do that with people to a certain extent. You want the best human possible. If you wanted to eliminate, genetic conditions, that is part of transhumanism. You could use genetic modification to eliminate these genes and keep them from being passed on. So these genetic conditions that ruin people's lives would no longer be a problem. But eugenics can also be taken to the extreme where you decide, well, since black people, have, the genetics for sickle cell anemia, well, we'll just prevent black people from having children and wipe them out. Every concept has its positives and negatives, and it's and it's just a matter of who has control of that. So, all right.
Okay. Now you still had a minute to go.
Oh, I still had a minute to go.
The
yeah,
first.
that's
Yep.
yeah, that's good anyway. So.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to move on to the debate between the rest of you. Mad Dodge, when we go into, are we releasing the link out, making it open debate, like later on after the conclusions?
Yeah, in the second hour, yeah. I do have a question, though, I want to pose to you guys.
No, that's for the second hour. That's for the second hour. We're now going on to the debate.
Why can't I pose a question
between the people? No, yeah, well, that's why you write it down.
Don't debates have questions posted? Don't you watch?
Yes, they do. Yes,
Cabbage, if you don't let him ask the fucking question, he's not going to stop.
Will be the first. He will be first on the list when it goes to the open.
I will forget it.
But at the moment,
oh God,
write it down. You do know how to write. I know your spelling's not good, but you should be able to read it.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I hate my new moderator.
Oh my God.
Well, okay. So we are now going into the actual debate.
I'm going to go
I know,
insane.
he's going to explode. Yeah, well, you'll just have to wait. You see? And anyway, look, it's only 10 minutes. It's only a 10-minute wait. All right? Hold it in. Okay? We'll pull off at the next truck stop. Okay?
Don't start turtle.
So this is now... It's an open debate now. So between the four of you, between the four of them, okay, just so it's clear.
Okay, so we can.
Away you go.
Okay, if it's okay, I would like to kick things off.
Please do.
All right. So I'd like to speak specifically to a point that Oz had brought up previously, and he was rebutting one of my previous arguments, saying that, well, there are prosthetics already in use. There are artificial screws and everything like that inside the human body. And now, this is very true. A lot of these screws and artificial kneecaps and artificial elbows, these have kind of metallic biomaterials, is what I read, but metallic biomaterials that are in use inside of the body. In things like prosthetics, for instance, and it's basically to reduce a lot of tension in high-stress areas such as the hips and knees. But the problem is that even though these metals, these biomaterials, are used in medicine, they still provoke a reaction from the immune response system, and this facilitates a lot of basically growth of scar tissue, and it isolates the material from its surrounding like a mode of function, basically. So if you're talking about a knee implant, scar tissue will start to form, and it will require multiple surgeries over your lifespan in order to clear out the scar tissue. So it's not very effective. These things are still very rudimentary.
So well, you were the one who was countering that aspect, Oz or Shirati. Would either of you like to come back at that point?
Well, he does have the ability to respond, right? Yeah. This is the 10-minute.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it is an open debate. Yeah, this is open debate.
No, I mean, the technology, I mean, just like anything else, is advancing, and yeah, at its current state. Yes, even some implants do have responses from the immune system. But like titanium is actually bioreactive, where the implants, the titanium implants, the bone actually views it as organic and will grow onto it, which is one of its main advantages being used in the situations where it's used in. Just like the dental implants, you know, they drill the hole, they put the screw in, and the bone will actually grow around the titanium to hold it in. So yeah, not everything has a negative reaction with the body. And as we find better materials and better ways to deal with it, the technology will only advance as technology does, especially information technology. You know, it explodes at an exponential rate. But the medical technology is obviously slower because you have to actually wait for the reactions that people actually have to it.
Yeah. There is another issue with
Shirati, any views? Oh, sorry, no, please rebut.
No, this will be my last one, and then other people can talk. So one of the other issues with titanium implants, and I actually looked this up. I was looking at some of the clinical trials that used to be held in Britain before they joined the EU, ironically. But a lot of the clinical trials revolving around titanium implants, specifically teeth, is that they were extremely expensive. I think they could cost upwards of $5,000. I think that'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of £6,000 a pop, a tooth. So a lot of that titanium, not only is this a relatively expensive material, but it's scarce as well. So if you're talking about injecting titanium implants into every single person, that's a very rare resource. That's like we're talking on the basis of mining comets, I think, to obtain enough material for the kind of full transition into using titanium implants. And I will concede.
So, Shirati and Quinn, you are noticeable by your absence.
Well,
any thoughts? I mean,
yeah. My point with the transhuman...
No, do share them. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. We won't bite much.
Hopefully you can hear me. I'm not actually sure. Yeah. Okay, good. Right. I agree with what Paul is saying. He is correct. The problem with the biotech and technology levels we have now, we can't produce what we're discussing. But as we're actually having to entertain the possibility of existing, we have to work on the idea that we are able to work a way around the human cybernetic connection. Everyone okay with that as a base idea?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm not...
Come on, people, get engaged. This is a debate.
I know. I'm not actually disagreeing with anything Paul is saying. I'm just trying to make the point that his argument, while 100% valid, unfortunately, if we're working on the idea that we could take ourselves to a singularity point, we have to work on the idea that we have developed tech appropriate to it. That's all I'm saying, mate.
No, that's fair enough.
Okay. So it's the end question seems to boil down to the should we. Well, the should we should be the person's choice. Yes, the rich will be the people that will be able to get this cyber tech first. No offense, but that's pretty bloody obvious. At the end of the day, it's going to go military get it first, then the rich bastards, and then eventually it trickles down to the peasants on the street. Now, you might think, well, yeah, that just means we're getting the really shit stuff. Yes, I don't want to break this to you, but when it comes to most medical things, we do not get the good shit. We get cheap. That is what it's going to be like with cyberware. Who isn't going to want enhancement? I mean, all of us here that play computer games, wouldn't you love to be able to just take a data jack it into the back of your head, and you control your game by your mind? You don't have to worry about any physical limitations. What is wrong with that? You are giving people who are incapable of moving a chance to have a form of life. Someone spoke. So
No, that isn't someone speaking. That's feedback again from ours with Shirati.
Okay.
They're obviously they're getting intimate in some way, apparently.
no, I took the break in case someone did want to say something, because the whole point is we're meant to be interacting. So
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, yeah, I'm still waiting to hear from Shirati on any topic.
No, as far
Go
as
on.
the whole singularity thing, I think it's a terrible idea, especially when used upon kids. They have no experience with life. They will never be able to experience an identity. They will live. Okay, all of us are here as individuals right now. But if we were part of the singularity, we would be, as Oz, as myself, as 40 have said, part of a hive mind. We would be thinking the same thoughts all the time. And earlier today, Batman asked me a question in the chat, something about would I deny people cloned limbs? The answer to that is yes, I would. Because I am completely against cloned limbs. I am against mechanical limbs. I am against any kind of appendages that are not a part of your body. I personally was asked if I wanted something added to my body, and I denied it.
Yeah.
And it was to help my epilepsy.
So that was that, but was that a moral grounds? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Wait, why do you get the answer? Why do you get the
breaking my own?
question?
No. I just retracted it, and I spurned myself for doing it. I corrected myself. Sorry, not my place. I will wait until after the conclusions. I will write it down too. Sorry, go ahead, guys. We still have, let me see, about 4 minutes to go.
All right.
Anybody else?
This part.
Yeah, that you did bring up something really interesting, Shrati, and that is something that I was actually thinking about as well when you very first started talking, is the kind of absorption of the individual into the hive mind. That's something that I really don't like the thought of, and that's something I was thinking quite a bit about as well. Is if you think back to basically the 1700s, the 1800s in England, the boon the Enlightenment gave us, all the perks that we got, the societal and economic perks through the kind of traditional Anglo-Saxon way of philosophy and thinking and economics, all of that would essentially go out the window. I mean, what use would there be for the individual if we were all a collective hive mind working towards one goal? That's what I think is most appalling, if you want to take into account the far, far future, is the elimination of the individual. I mean, you know, your favorite color wouldn't be blue, black, purple, pink. You wouldn't have a favorite color, hypothetically speaking. It would just be, I show up for my job, I do my job, and I go home and recharge. In the grander scheme of things, you're essentially a cog in a machine. There is no such thing as individuality in the far future.
Yeah, that was the point that I was trying to make. It's that, like I was just saying, we six right now are individuals. If we were part of the singularity, there would be no individuality.
Well, I don't think there's any guarantee that we wouldn't maintain individuality. There's no reason to assume that everyone is going to want to be absorbed into the hive mind.
Well, do you think it could be done through biohacking? I mean, what if the government decides they've had enough of the individual and decides to start hacking people's robotic limbs?
Well, I mean, just like anything else, and everything is possible. But I think you'd see some kind of revolution if people were connected, through some kind of network where they could communicate with each other, and people were starting to be influenced directly through governments or criminal organizations or anything else. I think you'd see a massive shift away from that. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get 7 billion people to sacrifice their individuality to become one mind and share their memories and share all their thoughts. Because I know, for one, the last thing I want is another human being reading my thoughts and knowing, everything about me at all times, and us merging into the same creature, because my memories are their memories and their memories are my memories. So yeah, you would, if that kind of thing were to happen, you would lose a sense of self because you're no longer a unique individual. But I don't see that as being, a goal for anyone. I can't imagine anyone honestly thinking that the best future humanity could have would be sacrificing every individual to become some kind of super being. I mean, there would be no purpose behind it.
Well, I think the average individual might not see a purpose, but I think a lot of totalitarian governments might see a very valid purpose. I mean, take hypothetically, if we were a
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh. Hypothetically, if we were a transhumanist society today, what gain would the EU have through just biohacking everyone and saying, right, you can no longer oppose immigration into your countries? I mean, that'd be quite a handy tactic to use, I would think.
By the way, just to let you know, we have 1 minute and 30. So Quinn and Sharati, if you want to have a word about anything, time to pipe up before we go to conclusions.
Yep, understand. I think the problem is that we've all got our own opinions, which is what makes us independent, which is kind of funny because we're arguing about whether or not connecting to one great overmind is a good idea. No, it's not. Okay, even though I'm arguing pro, it's not a good idea, but what it is inevitable. That is what I'm trying to get across. As much as you might not like the idea, start preparing for it, because it is coming, if not already here.
Sharati, you can have the last 30 seconds if you wish.
Well, with all the stuff that I've read and watched and, well, looked at over the past couple of weeks, it's been shown to me that this transhumanist society will be seen within the next 30 to 40 years, or start to exist rather, within the next 30 to 40 years. I.e., people will start uploading their minds or start removing their phones and putting them into their brains, so to speak. And that's honestly one of the most scary things in the world to me.
Okay. Well, on that note, we need to move on to conclusions. Yes? Is everyone okay with that? Okay, we're going in reverse order from introductions. So, Mr. Oz, if you would like to commence your conclusions.
All right. Basically, in conclusion, the Transhumanism, the advancement of technology, the advancement of human evolution, and the human condition in and of itself, is an inevitability. It is going to happen. It's just a matter of how far we allow it to go, how far we're willing to augment ourselves, and the reaction that society will have to it. Yeah, that's pretty much my conclusion.
Okay, short and sweet. Okay, now we're moving on to 40.
All right. Well, the only advancement that I see within the transhumanist movement is honestly the advancement of the goals of totalitarian governments, I think. With the prospects of biohacking, we already have people who have chips in their hands that can turn the lights on and off in their house. What's to say that someone can't hack that and turn your lights on and off while you're not home? What's the next step? Maybe unlocking your doors or stealing credit card information, whatever the case might be. So these concepts, while they sound as though they might improve the human condition, while they sound like they hold a very promising future, there are as many cons as there are pros. And I think we covered some of those today. But I can't help but see more cons than pros. I see the schisming of society in a whole, economically and societally, ethically, rather. I see lots of medical problems in the short term, and ultimately I think that in the long term, you're going to see a rapid expansion of a very split society, one that is starkly against augmentation and one that is for augmentation. And if you think that it's bad now, imagine when people are simply going to pay for gas and they're getting hacked. Imagine when someone tries to hack your robotic limbs and steal information or whatever the case might be. It's a very stark, very bleak future as it is. And I am done. Thank you.
Okay. Shirati, your conclusions, please.
Two words: CRISPR and Cas9. Genetic modification has a great deal to do with what transhumanists are dealing with and what are going to deal with. And if by chance these transhumanists augment people to, say, Hulk-like humans, or just in general superhumans, what happens if these superhumans decide that they want to be evil? I know we've already got evil humans. I know we've already got bad, but you've got a superhuman, say it's the first superhuman ever made, decides it wants to destroy a city because, well, it's the first it's ever made and it can. Genetic modification is not, well, it's not a good thing. And oh, quit huffing and puffing, Cabby.
No, sorry, I just noticed something. It's not you. Don't worry. Don't take it personally. I should have muted myself.
There's this bone disease. I don't quite remember what it's called right off the top of my head. But basically, their entire bone structure will, well, turn to bone, and the whole body will turn to bone, inevitably turning them to stone, basically. What if somehow CRISPR and Cas9 modified that to where somehow they turned them into some sort of Medusa type figure. I don't know how, don't ask. I'm not the scientist that's working with that. They decide they want to go around and start turning people to stone just because they got sick and tired of being stone-like themselves. Transhumanism and genetic modification, they go hand in hand, and neither one is good for society. I'm done.
All right. And so, Quinn, your conclusion, sir.
Okay. Something that Shirati brought up in an earlier conversation was the fact that people would lose the interest in sex. Now, I'd like you to think about this for a moment. Imagine if you had the capacity to connect to your sexual partner and actually feel the pleasure they got, beaming your pleasure back to them, setting up, for want of a better, an endorphin loop. No, sex wouldn't be ignored. It would just become an absolutely different experience as you truly understand your partner. The whole point of this is things can go bad with this, but how about we look at some of the benefits it's going to give us? People that couldn't continue their life because they're missing parts. With this technology, as much as this joke has been used in like the 70s or whatever, we can rebuild you. Who wouldn't want that? Who honestly could turn round and actually say, no, I don't want these people having access to a medical technology that will save their life? Just out of interest, is that chirping clue?
Oh, is that your bird?
Yeah, just I wasn't
The
sure
hell
if
is that
someone.
chirping?
I just thought someone was pulling a crickets thing, so you know.
No. We went through, and now everyone else is muted, mate. It's only thee and me. I just unmuted to let you know that you are chirping for some reason.
That's
Stop chirping, please. I'll shoot the bird.
kind of weird because there is no bird in the room. There's me and there's a cat, and the cat's asleep.
He's being facetious. Just figure out what your fucking problem is.
I don't know what the problem is. The net result, I'm trying to say with the whole cyber enhancement, don't necessarily look at it automatically as the bad thing. Just be prepared. We can actually benefit out of this long before it goes to shit. It's just a matter of getting control of it. It is, in my opinion, the next stage of our evolution. I'll stop there.
Okay. Are they done?
Okay.
Can I ask my questions now?
Indeed, you can. That's the conclusion. Thank you all for participating.
All right. First
Thank
question
you.
is first question, the pro side. All right, both of you. You don't think there's going to end up being a civil war between the upper class and lower class because they have the means and the money and the fucking ways to expand their life to beyond belief to where they're living Moses type lifetimes, and then the poor have no access to that, and when they do get access, it's slight and minimal, and they are never going to be lifted up to the next level. They're going to be a new serfdom. They're going to be the new slave caste. What do you say to that?
Me? Should I go first? We're already doing that. People need to kind of wake up. The rich ones get the good medical tech. The poor ones get less medical tech. The only difference.
Sorry, but the thing is, though, they're not becoming Khan, and then I'll let you continue. But you get my reference there.
I know where you're going.
Well, I mean, it's I mean, there's always going to be a question of availability, but then I don't think it's going to be the rich people who end up being, tested upon. The first people who are going to get it are going to be the poor, because the rich don't want it. Don't want to be guinea pigs, right? They'll use the poor for guinea pigs.
Do you really think so? Look at Elon Musk. He wants to shoot off to Mars. No, he wants to shoot himself to Mars.
Well, I hope he does. Good luck to him.
Well, so you see my point.
He claims he does, but when it actually comes to launch time, I'm sure he's going to have an extremely important hair appointment.
Okay, well, no, and I'll throw a question at the con side too. When you guys are arguing against replacing limbs that are lost, you kind of lose me.
I actually did want to say something to you about that longevity as far as it goes. Why would you want to live such a long life? I mean, you could have grandsons, great-grandsons, great-great-grandsons, and eventually have a 17 times removed great-granddaughter, and you look the same age that you do now, and then you become attracted to her.
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, how hot is she? I mean,
well, no. Why are you jumping right to incest? That's kind of weird.
Hey, if she's genetically removed enough,
I'm pointing out some things that could happen.
She's right.
Yeah, well, if I live 300 years, I have more chances of meeting Jessica Alba's great-granddaughter than I do my own at that point. I mean, really.
I'm going to say, throughout history, I mean, just look at people who live in, the villages of England or, anywhere in Europe or, and just look at the people in Alabama. Admittedly, not a good example. Shouldn't use that one, really.
As long as you say Alabama, as long as you go with Alabama, not Louisiana, we won't have a problem. But no, I'm throwing this.
If you have a close-knit family and you live for as long a time as you're hoping to live for, and your family keeps living and living, and you stop at a certain age.
Yes, but this isn't the singularity. You see, again, you're bringing up this idea of having the biological aspect still there. The transhumanism is the singularity, which is the release, removing yourself or the need for the body.
This is before the singularity even happens. This is before the hive mind. This is before you've uploaded your mind into your cell phone. What have you?
Now,
This is just.
Yeah, well, I have a question about
you
that.
having
Because
nanobots.
Everyone
Nanobots
seems to be
make you
assuming.
age for a long time.
Well, no, real quick, Kevin. I had the follow up here for the con side. Okay, what is wrong with if I lose my arm in war, you replace it? Or I'm Luke Skywalker, all right? Fucking Darth Vader chops my fucking hand off. I want a new goddamn hand, all right? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I was going to actually
carrot first.
I was I was actually going to ask you to propose that again because I wanted to address it. Well, one of the things I actually don't quite understand why we lost you in concern to replacing limbs. So even in today's, if you want to go to the most advanced stage of technology that we could possibly muster, we do have the capacity to manufacture robotic limbs like robotic prosthetics to some degree. You can hook sensors up to some of the remaining muscle tissue, and that muscle tissue is still active. And even there's parts of muscles in your bicep and your back that interact with you just simply moving the tip of your finger. So you could hook sensors up to that without it being a full augmentation into the body and risking infection or rejection. So we still have the capacity to create robotic limbs for someone if you want to go to that capacity, but it doesn't require the need for transhumanism.
But what's the resolution on that? What is the resolution to that in terms of sensitivity and accuracy in terms of movement? Because an implant obviously directly into the neuron itself is going to be a lot more accurate than picking up a general emission from a neural cluster.
Yes. So there are robotic hands that, like I was saying previously, instead of a direct augmentation into the muscle tissue and everything, it uses the sensors, and it can actually, you are capable of using both your hands to tie your shoelaces, for instance. So, and it's, now don't get me wrong, it's not, if someone throws a baseball at you, you don't have the split-second reaction time to, hold up your robotic hand and take the baseball and then crush it, or anything crazy like that. But you're capable of completing the most basic of tasks. If you want to pick up your mug or write with your pencil or do whatever it is you do on the daily, you can use your robotic prosthetic. But at the same time, it doesn't require transhumanism in order to improve the quality of life for people.
I would like to follow up on that point with 40 real quick. Would you say the people that are hooking up sensors to their brain and connecting directly to the computer, that's your definition right now of transhumanism, right?
No, the previous definitions that Sharadi and Oz used, basically a direct augmentation into the body. And so, yeah, I suppose that would qualify. Yeah.
Okay,
transhumanism, but transhumanism fundamentally ends in the singularity, which is the separation of, there seems to be this idea that everything has to be in a centralized point, like, one central database or whatever. That's the way that obviously things are happening at the moment, because we have corporations that want to hog data, and so people are gathering stuff like that. But there's no reason why you couldn't have a distributed network where each human actually has an autonomous, independent neural, positronic brain, which is still autonomous. So it's still experiencing its own thing. So it would still have a unique experience. It would still have its own thoughts, but it would still be able to interact directly with other people in the same way as, talking or whatever.
Are you talking about the Matrix?
No, Cabby, you had a question for me earlier. I was wondering if you remembered what it was.
This was it. This was it, about the hive mind, right? Because the idea of a hive mind is that everything is centralized, and so everyone thinks the same way, right? Nobody has an independent thought.
When I was talking about having something put inside of me, you were going to ask me about that, and I told them no.
No, that wasn't me. This is the question I was going to ask, was the one about the idea of the difference between a hive mind and a distributed network, right? A distributed network would permit you to actually, that you wouldn't need everything in a central database. There wouldn't be a hive mind. It wouldn't be a singular, point of thought. So each individual would still have the power of a positronic brain. No, can I finish, for fuck's sake?
I can answer.
You finished twice already. You're repeating yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, but I keep on getting interrupted, so I can't actually complete the train of thought. So I haven't actually finished.
Okay, Cabbage, if you finish, I will answer your question.
Okay, so you end up with a distributed network, which means that there is autonomy that is outside. Now, you could still have a central bank of knowledge, which could also have its own positronic brain, a bit like a sort of a mind hub or something. I suppose like a library or something along those lines, which you can tap into. But then you can still go out, maintain your own personal experiences, right? You maintain your own experiences. So that will develop you as a separate entity, even if it is a synthetic entity, as opposed to the idea that you are going to be, this idea that all of your thoughts are fed to you by a central computer system. It seems to be an odd conclusion that everyone comes to, that everyone, that we're all going to have to tap into one central machine in order to get our thoughts. That's, I mean, that's just very much it's Star Trek, isn't it? I mean, it's just.
Are you talking about like a
Lazy.
digital twin, Cabbage?
Hey, who knows C. Calhoun?
No, nothing like that.
Hold on.
Oh,
Cabbage, can I answer your question?
Please, I hope you can.
So, do you, or I don't know if this was exclusive to America, but do you remember the gas station credit card kind of not conspiracy? It was proved to be true. It's like a I'm trying to think of it was like a debacle, a scandal, that's it. So there was a massive scandal in the United States during the 2012s, 2013s. You would pull up to a gas pump and you would use your credit card or debit card to pay for your gas, and you would be on your way. So people were taking apart the gas pump machines and inserting a little device that would scan your debit card or your credit card. It would collect this information, and then someone would later come by and pick it up. So, to transition this to the topic of transhumanism, if you use the microchip in your hand or in your robotic limb or whatever it might be, if you plug up to the cloud to save your thoughts or your data or whatever it might be, why is it that someone cannot potentially hack that and absorb that into some kind of hive mind? That's where the prospect of the hive mind is coming in. It's more of the biohacking than anything, I think.
Well, and you would have enemy states trying to do that, but also if you're trying to create the singularity, the joining between man and the internet or computers, what have you, you're going to end up with people that will stay outside it and could hack it. And you're either going to be a hive mind or you're going to create a matrix, Cabby.
Can I put in something? My own thoughts. You've got Sharati and a lot of you have been on about the augmented humans, whether it be biologically or technologically. Thing is, the more these people would get augmented, the less in common they would have with their people around them, and that way they would literally become less and less human.
Yeah.
That's going to cause conflict.
Well, yeah, because it would be a simulation. It wouldn't be an actual biofeedback mechanism.
No, he's talking about augmentation. He's talking about augmentation, Cabby, not inseminating himself into a computer.
No, I'm not saying about simulating.
But that's the same problem you have with anybody who loses a limb, is that, or like serious burn victims or people with serious deformities, is society as a whole views them as something less than human, because because of the disfigurement. So I don't see why there would be a drastic change in the attitude that humans currently have towards other humans. Well, and what they would have towards an augmented human. It's the same. Human nature is to dislike and distrust anything outside of normal. So yeah, if you have a prosthetic limb, you are viewed as something other.
Yeah, I think there would be a difference. It would be the people who get augmented that would have the disconnect, because they're not just going to be getting augmented physically, they're going to be getting augmented mentally as well. They're going to be stronger, faster, smarter, longer lived, and that's going to have changes on their base personality. It has to, because they're playing around with the very things that make them who they are. They become somebody and someone different. Ultimately, it's going to end up with the rising of a synthetic race, really.
Well, Mad Dodge, going back to your question or your thing there about it's about the Matrix. No, the Matrix is a separate one. You could go completely into virtual, but the positronic brain, where you actually have each person uploads their brain into a separate physical unit, right, that has its own autonomy. That's very different than going into the Matrix, right? Because you will still be out in the real world, right? You'll be in a synthetic body. That's another way of uploading yourself, but you will be in the real world.
Hey, that's an interesting question there, Cabbage. You just made me think. Is it possible that somewhere in the not too distant future, people might be going to work entirely in VR?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's more than feasible. Hell, I'd work remotely now. Not going to be that, but in fact, I don't see it that far away. I think probably within the next decade, easily.
I can actually see airline pilots not actually being on the aircraft themselves, but piloting it with virtual reality.
Well, how about?
Well, the thing is, what they'll have is that they'll have a bank of pilots, and there'll be an alert that appears. The only time that they'll be needed is when a plane has a problem.
Yeah.
So they won't need as many pilots, right? Because how many problems ever happen? And the planes will fly themselves, and the only time a pilot will be called upon is when there's a problem.
Yeah, which is less and less each year.
Exactly. So you end up with about 5 pilots running the whole of BA.
Oh, there's another one. There's another idea I came up with in the chat. It's thing about human history. We're saying all the way through human history, civilizations fall, technology gets lost. So what happens to these people who are augmented technologically, dependent on their connection to the internet, for want of a better word? Civilization falls, and that technology's gone. They're up shit street, aren't they?
Yes.
When I'm to CSG. Where did CSG go?
His tablet had to restart. Maybe if you read the chat, you'd know things and have to pay attention better.
How could he type in my? Okay, right. So, all right, I got it. I see.
Well, the thing still remains. Some augmentation, I believe, would be good. Artificial limbs, stuff like that. But RFID chips and implants in my brain, no thank you. Gene manipulation, and the gene manipulation is where it gets weird. Because, like my con reference earlier, Mr. Quinn, that's what gene manipulation will give you. Con. Do you want Spock to die, sir?
The thing is, in some areas, I can see like genetic engineering being a good thing.
How can you see stuff like CRISPR and Cas9 turning into something good?
Let me finish. I was going to say, like, somebody has an accident at work, they have their arm ripped off. Instead of like going to physiotherapy and learning how to use an artificial arm, they can have the stem cells in the body stimulate the new arm. It's a temporary genetic alteration. That's all the growth a new arm. That's a good thing.
Well, no, and Batman, I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm looking at the chat here. Calhoun, man or woman, I don't know what you are. Join us if you would like. And please do subscribe, but take this with a grain of salt. But no, we're not talking about science fiction here. CRISPR is a real thing. Uploading your brain to the internet has been talked about by many a fucking transhumanists. And we're not spouting science fiction here. If you think this debate shrunk your brain, I think you had an oversized ego of your own brain to begin with. Come prove me wrong.
No, I have to say, I was pretty disappointed. I thought it was going to be a bit more lively, especially in the 2-on-2 debate, the open part. Well, I thought there was going to be more. It's just lackluster. There's no energy.
Why does everyone think that you have to like be at each other's throats with knives and machetes?
No, I didn't think you had to do that. I just thought there'd be more engagement. Well, I'll put it this way, right? The beginning, nobody used fucking more than 3 minutes of their opening option.
Except for
their opening gambit.
Except for 40 and my husband, they used almost all of their time. Yes,
No,
even you said that Oz
used written down.
You said
it written down here.
You said Oz used all but 30 seconds.
Okay.
Is this what you wanted, Cabbage?
Shut up. Quinn, 3 minutes extra, to follow over. Shiraki, you had 3 minutes. There was 2 minutes and 5 that actually 40 didn't use.
Well, Cabby,
no, 30 seconds. Yeah, the only one that even got remotely close was your husband, and he had 30 seconds.
Hey Cabby, if you ran it like a debate, the people could actually
I
ask
am
questions.
proving you wrong. I've got it written down. Don't fucking tell me I was moderating and I wrote everything
fucking
down.
hell.
Fuck off.
If you would have ran it like the presidential debates where other people could ask questions and they can go off of that, it would have lasted a little bit longer, sir. I had some great questions.
No, but that's it. Well,
God
yes,
damn it.
but this is a debate. I know, and you came in like a fucking dog at the end before we could even close it off professionally and actually, you know, thank everyone and finish it up. But no, you had to come in like some fucking excited, sick little dog.
Are you coming?
Anyway, never mind. I tried. Anyway, we've got an open debate now, so you know, fucking sick each other.
Cabbage, you
I
did
thought
a
we were
good
meant to
job.
be doing a civilized debate.
Gabby, are you dying?
Cabbage, you did a good job.
No.
You did a good job.
I am just saying
boy, you
that
need
you
a doggy
fuckers have never done
bone.
any. I am telling you, just don't go to Oxford or Cambridge. You'll disgrace yourself.
Why?
Oh, fuck you, man. This was perfectly civil and it was fine. Everything was good. Thank you,
Yeah,
Cabbage.
but it
You
was
did a great
dull.
job. So was every fucking
there
civil
wasn't
debate.
much to do, was there?
Well, you shouted at MADDS a lot.
Anyway.
How
Yeah.
bad?
Well,
Dick.
yeah.
His opinion?
Well, I'm sorry, but you agreed. We sat there before the fucking stream agreeing the format. You said yes, and so I'm sorry, but
yeah, well, no.
it's your channel, it may be, but if you agree a format, you got to
Is
stand.
it my
Are you a
channel?
man of
Okay.
honor or not?
It's my channel. It's my okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, it is my channel. Okay. Thank you. No, asshole.
Are you a man of honor?
no, during the
You're not a man
fucking
of
middle.
honor.
Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Okay.
Well, this
in
just got
the middle of the debate, if the moderator and the other person actually ask questions, they'll debate the goddamn question, you numbskull. Do you not know how this fucking works?
But the thing is, excuse me, no. Do you know how Oxford debate works? Which is where you actually, this is how it works.
England.
And then you open it up to the floor, which is what we've done now, so that, you know, everyone can come in and actually engage with it. But the way in which you actually do a formal debate, do you know how formal debates work? Have you ever been to one?
Do they?
What do you mean, do they? Do who? I gave you the format. That's exactly how they work.
They didn't go back and
fucking
forth. They
rocket
needed
science.
some prodding, you dick.
Listen,
you
if
throw
you
a question.
can't even understand how a fucking debate works, how the hell are you supposed to understand
This got
transhumanism?
interesting fast, and weren't we talking about transhumanism?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, exactly. This is getting sad. Wow.
No, what's getting sad is you keep fucking screaming like a...
Oh. Now
yeah,
victim.
really, Batman?
Now victim.
Yeah, well, why not? You were doing it.
So is anyone going to ask questions, or are we going to fucking sit here with our dicks in our hands the rest of the day?
Probably sit here
I'd
with our
give you
dicks
one-
in our hands
I'd
while
give you
these
one
two
question.
scream at each other.
I came
Hang
to ask
on,
questions.
just fucking pissy because I actually try to maintain the format.
MC?
That's all it is.
MC, ask us
MC, how you doing,
questions.
mate?
MC, argue
Yeah.
about transhumanism
Well, no,
with us.
it doesn't matter. No, the debate's all over. I mean, this is just open
You want
forum.
me
Cabbage,
to-
would you
Debate
shut your
anymore.
fucking
If you want me
baby
to
face?
ask a question about transhumanism, the first
Fuck
question I
you.
have is when do you transition from being a human?
I muted you that time, Cabby, because somebody was trying to fucking talk.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
Well, no,
okay,
I'm
alright.
running with this bullshit.
Okay,
What do you mean?
no.
I've
Back
actually
to the question I
was
asked.
screaming at me.
What about the question I asked? When?
Yeah,
do
can we
people-
please
When
talk?
do you transition? The whole thing about transhumanism means that you transition from being a human, right? Well,
Yeah.
when does that actually take place? When do you stop being a human?
If you look at medical science that is currently under development,
Okay.
pacemakers, for a start, have taken away one's ability to pump their own blood into an actual mechanism. And then, of course, we've got bioengineering along the lines of prosthetics that are being able to do normal everyday activities.
Right. I understand that.
is
But the
hooked up to
question
nervous systems.
the question
So
goes
when
back
you
to
go-
Carl's
Can you
question
let
about
me
the boat.
finish my sentence, please?
I apologize.
Oh my god.
When you look at the way that science is progressing, as well as the moral and ethics of it, we're going to go one of two ways. We're either going to end up with experiments of superhuman abilities of pretty much new species that's going to get destroyed. Or we're going to go down the path of, say, something like Ghost in the Shell kind of thing, where you're not uploaded to any systems, but hacking can be done. It all comes down to what makes you a human being. Where is that line in the sand? That is the biggest issue that none of you are actually comprehending. Where is that line in the sand that says you are human, you are cyborg, which can be anything from having a robotic prosthetic limb all the way through to full synthesis, or completely and utterly being an AI being, like what they've kind of fucking with at the moment,
are you
and
asking
finding
where
that they actually want to destroy
the
humanity.
soul is?
Well, I think
where
it
is
also
the
goes
soul?
back. I also think it goes back to what Carl was asking when he was asking about the boat, and you replace it plank by plank. When does it stop being the same ship?
Yeah, it's like your grandfather's axe. How many times do you replace the axe head and the handle before it stops
But I
being
didn't get an
grandfather's
answer.
axe?
Okay, well, I can give you an answer, and I'll use a really easy analogy. There's an episode of Star Trek. Yeah, I know Star Trek. Fuck off, Cabby. But no, wait, no. Hey, can I finish my sentence?
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, no. Okay, so.
Everyone's fucking head tonight.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little tired of being talked over every single fucking day for 2 hours a day. It's getting aggravating. Anyway, okay, so they replaced this guy's brain bit by bit to keep him.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it's a DS9 episode. Vedic Baral is his name, and they replaced his brain bit by bit so he could help with the negotiation. Well, at the end, they're like, you know, I don't want him to die. Replace the last bit of his brain. And the doctor says, no, it will no longer be Vedic Baral. It will be a shell of his own existence. It will no longer be him. Well, the line is there. And I would draw the line a lot sooner with even implants into the brain. Would be beyond anything I would want. Or RFID chip. You're going to chip my kids and I like we're a dog or a cat? No fucking thank you. Yeah. Anyway, I'm done now. Go ahead.
Can I have a comment about this this whole uploading of your brain thing? I mean, say we get the computers that could actually handle that ridiculously huge amount of information. You upload your consciousness into the computer. That's not you. That's a copy of you. So you haven't achieved immortality. All you've done is make a copy of yourself that's going to be around after you die.
Save point.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems with regarding consciousness is it's as much a philosophical question as it is one of science. We understand the parts of the brain and their function. We understand the parts of the brain that give you hand-eye coordination and vocabulary and memory and all these other things, but we don't quite understand what part of the brain consciousness, quote-unquote, comes from. That's something that, as far as I'm aware, neuroscientists haven't quite been able to pinpoint to any region of the brain.
Yeah.
So,
but we don't quite understand all of the brain.
No. Hey, to be fair, I've been bitchy. Let 40 finish. So.
I thought it was finished. Sorry.
From what I've heard, human consciousness is described as an emergent quality. You know, it's more than the sum of its parts.
Well, do humans have a soul or don't they? If they have a soul, then merging them with technology will eliminate said soul. If they don't, well, then maybe the transhumanists have an idea.
Why would it? Transmutate?
I'm going to back up what Redeye said and state that we know more about the moon than we do about how our own brains work.
That's
we
just
know more
the thing.
about
we don't.
the ocean that we know about our own brains. It's it's a continuously evolving science of learning how the neurons work in the brain, how the different senses.
We just recently found a new part of the brain.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And there are parts of the brain which we know about now are completely different to what we used to think they were.
Yeah, then again, though, you can send electronic impulses into the brain, and they know how to do this to invoke certain emotions or certain actions. We can change brain chemistry and make people do what we want them to do.
No, you don't even actually have to have. You don't even need to have an implant for that. You can do it externally as well. You can use electromagnetic induction to get effects. There was one where they managed to get people to believe in God. They thought they were having, religious experiences. Yeah, it's really freaky.
So Cabby, building off of that, do you think then the human body is more of a machine for the soul, or what exactly is it?
That has been postulated, mate. That really has been postulated. Yeah, you need to check out. It was this time. It looks so fucking stupid. But the original the experiments were done, and it was a crash helmet that they used, like this really old-fashioned 80s crash helmet, and they just plugged it full of these electromagnets, and then just boom, they just started firing signals and seeing what people thought. So sometimes they would have different hallucinations, or they could, and then they found one part of the brain when they stimulated it, people started having religious experiences.
Like Cabbage, if you remember when we had the guy on from the Ghost Channel, that's one of the things that came up. There are electromagnetic fields in nature directly affect your perception, which is one of the reasons why scientists think that certain areas are reputed to be haunted, because there's a high natural electromagnetic.
All right, children, I'm done.
Well, there's hallucinations. Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right, bye, Shorty. Cabby, in the chat here, Ren Bailey says, Cabbage Patch Bastard. I'd like a citation for that. So you got somebody calling you out in the chat for what you...
Yeah, that's fine. It was a Horizon documentary. I will find the documentary for you, and I'll post a link in. Give me a few seconds. Shouldn't take too long.
I think I remember.
Yeah, no, it's a well-known one. It's been, the actual science behind it.
The thing about that, though, Cabby, is, if I remember right about that, and I could be wrong, all right, is the fact that, there were people that had those experiences, but not everybody was experiencing it that way. And that goes back to a different aspect of it. We have areas of the brain which generally function the way we expect them to, but we've also discovered there are time periods when the brain will map things differently to compensate, and all of a sudden it goes to a different spot. So the brain is very, it's very complex, and we still have much to learn about how neural nets and how.
Thing was MC, but MC, the thing about that.
Okay, Cabby, go first, and then Furry, you go, and then MC responds. There you go. Like, we gotta get some order here, guys.
I'm not jumping up to MC.
Okay.
Cabby, you gotta shut the fuck up, man. You really do.
Well, no, because we're actually we're having there's an interaction. There's an interaction going on.
Well, no, and to be fair,
90% of the interaction.
And there's major lag. Look, you've got major lag. Look, whatever your attitude is, I don't give a fuck. Anyway, MC, I'm gonna respond to you. The thing was, when they did that experiment, they still managed to achieve the same results in terms of the, like these people having religious experiences, but they did happen in different parts of the brain, which only pointed out the fact that it was a lobe, but it might be located in different places depending on the where things are not all the same, right? Like Albert Einstein, he had very close neural clusters in the areas that did mathematics and stuff. So he had a naturally more accelerated brain in that regard. So it was definitely the case that they could induce it in The vast majority. I mean, the only time they couldn't do it was when they couldn't find a particular area, but they were using extremely low resolution, emitters at the time. So they were trying to hit large portions. It wasn't exactly accurate.
All right, now Furry, go ahead, and then we'll go on to MC to respond, and then Batman, and then Common Sense Guy hasn't said a goddamn word. I'm trying to have some more order here, and shit's gonna get more organized next week, guys. So get used to more of a hard ass attitude.
I know I don't have lag because my internet's pretty good today, and I reckon Cabby's just not listening as much as he's talking.
Well, fair enough,
No.
but go ahead and go with your point, Furry. Go ahead. It's your turn.
All right.
Whiny bitch again.
Oh, would you shut up?
I will if you fucking make a point.
If you shut up long enough, I'll make a point.
Are you two married?
Yeah.
Everywhere he'd be dead.
So you definitely are married then.
Man and woman found dead in private hotel.
Take it peace, for God's sake. Christ.
Anyway, neurology. In the last 20 years,
Get on with it.
massive leaps and bounds with figuring out how the brain works, and it's still a very complicated issue of the brain doesn't work the same with everyone. Every brain's a little bit different with how it functions in its neurology and other stuff. And the interesting thing is when you have someone with learning disorders and other such, dyslexia, autism, and all that shit, the brain's neurons are completely rewired differently to a point where it actually baffles scientists and neurologists. They don't fully function at the same rate, but at the same time they function at the same rate, if not more so, because they have to run through different channels and they go the long way route, such as communication centers. If it doesn't work,
Hey, I'm cutting in for a minute.
Please do.
Oh,
Yes.
God damn it.
No, I'm cutting in because Quinn and I were just talking, and Cabby forgot to do the poll at the end of the debate, like he said he was going to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, press
Yes,
one.
and I didn't get a chance to fucking do it because he was jumping up like some
Oh, yeah, we're going
anxious
back to
puppy
that.
to get his question. Yeah, well, it's pointing
Well,
out why we didn't do it.
Are you
even
done?
brain chemistry is still a new science that we haven't figured out
Press
yet.
1 if you think the pros won. Press 2 if you think the cons won.
Okay, thank you for yelling over Furry there. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, she loves that.
Just wait till I flail you alive.
May I quickly jump on your point, please, Furry? Because
No.
I've actually...
Let her speak. She is impressed.
She's definitely impressed. But
Oh yeah, I
everybody's
got
been
the
making...
disability card and everything.
Quite a lot of people have been making the point of trying to say that there's going to be a singularity, but the point that you've just made is the point of the reasons why there probably won't ever be a singularity, because everybody's brain is wired differently. So how would you universally be able to wire up the brains to fit into a single narrative or a single point?
Well, you get enough of the population that is wired to where they'll connect to it, and then you eliminate the rest. That's where eugenics comes into the game.
Yeah, how do you prevent insanity?
Can I quickly just jump on that? Because I can't shout because of the time of day where I am. But let me quickly jump on that. If you're going to have people that are already going to be signed up into the actual matrix or into the singularity, how are they going to be killing other people to get rid of them?
The people creating the whole network, the people controlling it. You think the real people want to actually jump into this? No, they want to use it as a control measure. They want to control the masses. It's a way to control everybody.
If I may interject, if everybody's, if you want to reduce most of the population, everybody's hooked into this this global mental network, you could, your top 1% could conspire to send out a command to, I don't know, turn people's hearts off.
Yeah, the most
Control,
common
Alt, delete.
concept of normality is the most common denominator amongst a group of people.
What I wanted to say about the brain was saying about what MC brought up about the brain rewiring itself. It is, even in adults, the brain is a fascinating adaptive thing. There's been people, they've had chunks of the head blown off. The brain has rewired itself so it can function normally with pieces missing. That's how versatile it is. It's incredible.
How versatile it can be, yes. But the other question I have about when everyone talks about the singularity is how do you know that every time? How are you going to avoid when you start combining minds together insanity? How are you going to prevent that? Because that has to be the number one thing. Because as you start adding people, if that singularity goes insane, then what are you going to do?
Well, if it's a digital digital upload.
Well, that's why I was saying that. But that's why I was saying it.
Don't you just hit F5?
That's why I was saying that you have. But that's why I was saying that you have a distributed network as opposed to a central core. You know, where all of it's happening, and so there is only a singular mind state. So if everyone has their own autonomy and independence, then you're still having technically your own experiences. So your neural net will develop independently. So in a kind of weird way, you will still be independent and unique in that sort of respect.
Well, then you're no longer a singularity if you be unique.
No, you would be a part.
Well, no, but you would be a part of the singularity.
But people, let the host speak.
You would be a part of singularity, but you would. No, I will dictate. No, I'm the fucking dictator now. God damn it. Okay.
No, I'm telling her.
You would be a part of the singularity, in my opinion, but it would be like a matrix scenario where you're in a program, but they're using your energy or whatever else they can get from you. You'd be like a battery. But no, also, I made the joke. Hit F5. With the whole crazy thing, but seriously, why wouldn't they just reboot it? Why not hit F5? That's a real question.
Because all you do is if you reboot, all you're going to do is return to the state that you were in before. So going into standby and then restart. I mean, you'd have to go to a backup or an archive if you wanted to go back to a state of insanity. But if you're insane, how would you know to do that, right? Because you're mad as a hatter.
Well, you save right when you start it, and then you replay it over and over again until it works. I mean, it's a computer simulation at that point, right?
The thing is, though, if everybody's mind's uploaded into a digital form, how are you going to go insane? Because insanity requires emotions, and in a digital form, you wouldn't have emotions because emotions are.
Well, no.
Look at Mark Zuckerberg.
Why does emotions require biology? We don't know what emotions require because we don't know how all of this works.
We do know what emotions require because emotions require hormones. Hormones produce biological effects in the brain, chemical effects rather in the brain, which produce emotional responses.
Except they have been able to synthesize the endocrine system, which is responsible for emotions. Along with a number of other things. But I mean, it's possible to create a simulation of emotions.
So it would be a simulation of emotions. It wouldn't be an actual emotion then.
Thank you, Cabbage.
Really, at that point, how do you tell the difference?
Jensen, I muted you because of the echo. And go ahead, Oz. Sorry, I just wanted to tell Jensen I wasn't mad. I just muted him because of his echo.
Yeah, if the digital copy of you is the only copy that exists, at what point do you say that that's not real, or the thoughts and emotions that the digital consciousness has aren't real?
That's a fair point. But what I was going to say was about the emotions. And insanity, it's a simulation of emotions, and therefore it would be controllable. So if it looks like it's pushing you towards insanity, you can tail it back a bit.
Not all insanity is necessarily emotion based.
There would be fail safes.
With that,
by the way, I would just like to say I put the citation into the chat as requested. So whoever asked for it, it is in there. I'll do it again now just to be sure that it's
the creation though of a failsafe is going to take what?
My biggest issue with all of that is basically, what if the person was insane to begin with, just born that way? Then what?
The solution, MC, is Sony mini discs. And hear me out on this. Yeah, I mean, it sounded like, and I knew this would trigger Cabby, so I went with it. Basically, Sony mini discs were basically a digital version of just, you just continue to record everything. How is that different? If we are living in a simulation at that point, if you are just live action subscribing the data to everything there, you don't have to call it Sony mini disc. I'm just using that because that was a terribly failed product that I actually bought. But hey, I mean, all you're doing is you're recording the information, but having backup if you're dealing with all humanity is probably a good thing.
That's another thing. I mean, uploading engrams, as Seacal who put it, yeah, basically your mind, your memories, your thoughts, your emotions. That's going to take a ridiculously powerful computer, one that I don't even think we have the technology to build yet.
Well, they're working on the quantum computer supposedly, so there's that. But my question would be, what about like the DNA arc, where they want to store DNA and stuff, or they already have the cold depository for seeds and stuff in case of Armageddon? I mean, is that somewhat transhumanism, to where you can save the DNA for some survivors to replicate it later?
No, it isn't.
Well, in a way.
No, it's not.
In a way, it is.
You're saving seeds.
If we can upload engrams or upload your mind into a artificial device, then you should be able to download it again, right? Back into a biological form.
But don't you lose some of it every time you replicate or something?
What do you mean? We've never done it before. How do we know what we'll do?
Just based on some data.
What means is actually saying is that whenever you actually copy a piece of data, which is anything to do with any piece of computer that's saved onto a hard drive or any sort of form, when you copy that piece of data, it always degrades. It always loses a bit of it. It always degrades a bit and then ends up corrupting.
The basic law of diminishing returns.
Exactly.
But yeah, but in this instance, you first uploaded your master copy onto the cloud or whatever. And every time you download from the master copy, make a copy from the master copy. So you're not going to suffer from degradation because you're always using the master copy.
Yeah, but if you're talking about cloning technology, then you would have regressive genes that might pop up the more you clone the same sample. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there would be a degradation there.
That's possible no matter what you do.
Sorry, that would only happen if you make a clone, then make a copy, then make a clone of that clone, and then a clone of that clone, and so on.
No, because if you keep using the original, you're going to run out of original DNA eventually, and once you get to the end of it, it might be all regressive genes left in the DNA sample. We don't necessarily know how DNA works.
Good idea, but if the person's still alive, you've got an indefinite supply of DNA.
If we've got computers, if you have a computer that's powerful enough to start actually uploading a mind, you're going to be able to totally sequence a DNA and always have it there as available.
That's a good point, MC.
The biggest issue I have with that is which DNA should we turn on and off to have a healthy specimen?
Well, and who's to say that? Well, no, common sense guy. Who's to say that what we call an abnormality right now might not be a gene that's coming through to help us in the future? You know what I mean? We used to have tails, dude. Like seriously. I mean,
that's
fine. But Mad Dodge. I mean, they are now saying that autism is, like a good thing, that because it's, it has positive traits, and so we should embrace autism.
I'm not saying
because everyone's getting it now.
I'm not diagnosed as autistic. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for them to finish all the trials and testings of this retrovirus to kill off the extra neurons that we have so that I can actually function like a normal fucking human being.
Now you just got to try and convince all the SJWs that you don't want that. But
They can fuck off. They don't have to live with it.
You know that one of the largest groups, some of the largest groups that are lobbying against genetic research into curing disabilities, especially inherited disabilities, are disabled groups.
Yes.
They want to remain disabled.
Because they want to keep their identities. Just to
quickly... Fuck that shit.
Just to quickly jump on to Mad Dodge's original point, you could quite easily say that things like cancer are not inherent traits that we...
I think it's Tom.
Yeah, because there is a genetic disorder where a cancer gene gets turned on and is passed down through the bloodline, and the body sees there's something wrong with it if it doesn't have cancer. I know 2 family groups with it in Australia. Not a common thing.
What do they call it?
Have one's mother in having chemotherapy and going to the ward downstairs to visit her son going through the exact same thing. One's mother in having...
No, you can be predisposed toward cancer. That's still very true.
Well, this is an actual genetic disease.
It is. It's a predisposition towards certain types of cancer.
In actual fact,
diagnosable disease of the body doesn't know how to function without having cancer.
The body functions perfectly fine without having cancer to begin with. That's why inherently it's a condition that happens either through traumatic stress or through general degradation that happens too quickly that the body can't fight back off. It's generally cancer in itself is generally mutations that happen that the body can't get rid of quick enough.
Yeah, that's caused through being a copy of a copy of a copy. Eventually, if you live long enough, you will get cancer.
If you're a male and you live long enough, eventually you will end up with prostate cancer. If you're a woman, at some point in time, if you live long enough, you will get breast cancer.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
MC, how about this one as well? What would be the filter criteria for something like if we are going to be centralized? Then, to filter out somebody who is an absolute either sociopath or psychopath who hasn't been caught, doesn't have a criminal record, you don't know anything about it, but is there going to be a pattern recognition system in order to identify these people when they get uploaded? I mean, this is the whole point, right? Because I don't want to be merged with a Ted Bundy.
It might be more than that, Cabbage. There might not just be a pattern recognition system there. It might be a pattern.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So then are they denied the right to be uploaded?
Yeah, let me finish. I was saying there might not just be a pattern recognition software there, but also a pattern correction software. This is what I was going to finish. Sorry,
correction.
Yeah, well, no. Wait a minute though. Actually, that leads me into an interesting thought here. If they have implants in your brain, can they convict you of crimes you haven't committed yet? Can it be like that fucking one movie I can't even remember the name of right
Minority
now?
Report.
But there you go. Can it be that type of shit with the augmentation? I mean, why not?
No.
Why couldn't it?
No.
Well, it shouldn't
No.
be.
Minority Report. Minority Report was about watery tarts making predictions.
Just imagine, Cabby, you're sitting there, right? You're getting in an argument with your wife, and you think to yourself for 1 second, oh, my gun's sitting right there. I could be done with this.
I could offer.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're done, right? You move on because you're not a psychopath. Well, they could bust in the door and be like, you fucking thought about killing your wife. You're dead. You're done, dude. You're out of here. Right?
That'll be a fine. That'll only be a fine.
That's on
Well,
1984.
can I quickly jump on that for a second? If say, for instance, that does actually happen. Say, for instance, that does actually happen, where they come to a point of being able to register that you've been able to have that for. Surely there would be, at that point, chemical imbalances that would actually be able to be registered to be able to work out whether you've actually are going to do this or not, as in higher adrenaline or some sort of form of melatonin or something. Maybe there would be something that they would be able to actually work out if you were going to go and do something, because then they could distinguish between the 4 and you just about to do an action.
Well, what are you going to do then when you utilize that? Because if you get that technique the way you just described, it means they can also go the other route to where they influence you to go ahead and make the other decision. And that would be very good for like war and things like that. So for soldiers, are you going to integrate those people who had to kill a lot of people on a battlefield?
Well, that would be something that the government would probably do, and as government would probably do that, then that would be something that the government would be held responsible for.
Yeah.
Well,
PTSD.
Transhumanism is going to be done on an individual basis and not be done or sponsored by a government?
It depends. Do you trust your government not to commit democide?
No.
All that PTSD in the single hive mind.
MC, that is the best answer I've ever heard you give for anything. No to that question. Thank you, MC.
But seriously, I mean, but it's a very good point. You know, PTSD in all of those people with PTSD, and that all gets merged into this singular. You know, I mean, if it is a singular central database, then yeah, it's a fucking disaster.
I put a link in the sidebar. Can you please look at that, because that's pretty much the genetic disorder that causes cancer repeatedly at a young age onwards, that is passed down through one's bloodline.
But I want to talk.
I'm sorry, what's that relevant to?
It's not right now, but it was back when I brought it up.
No. We all agreed with you. We all agreed with you that it was genetic.
You guys, rat.
More than just genetic, because there are disorders where that cancer genome is.
Okay.
Nobody disagrees.
Yeah, thank you for the citation. Rat just joined. He's trying to say something. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a little bit about the point of if you live long enough, eventually you're going to get prostate cancer. Was that the?
If you're a male, and you.
Okay, so in what time span are we looking at there? Because you could basically say that if you live forever, you will eventually get every disease that there are, and you will eventually also be cured of every disease if you live forever.
Right.
So there are people that are 100 years old that still hasn't gotten prostate cancer.
That's true, and there's no way to determine when somebody is going to get any kind of genetic disorder or any kind of cancer. All right.
Well, MC, aren't there actual genetic markers out there? Because I'm just thinking back when I went to the Harvard Club, that one of the actual markers that they have found in folks is a gene that's has a high resistance to cancer, along with a more dense bone gene and stuff.
Yeah, but similarity, there's genes supposedly linked to alcoholism, but they can't directly link them because science.
Yeah,
but
it's a set of genes.
I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to weed out the genes and use CRISPR to do this and make a super race? I mean,
well, the problem with weeding out genes like that is you run into the possibility of ossification, where you don't advance anymore.
Yeah,
that's my point exactly. Some of these genes are there for a reason, guys.
But that's the thing about the genes. We don't really know enough about them to be able to determine from genes that this person is definitely going to become an alcoholic, for example.
Well, no, Rat, you're absolutely right. And the thing is, we know enough though with technology that we can fuck with them. That's why we need.
Should we be playing God?
The thing about genes,
we shouldn't.
The thing about genes is, as we evolve, we don't lose genes. Certain genes get turned off, but they're still there. We have the genes of our earliest ancestor.
I mostly lose my sweatpants anyway.
Can I just quickly jump on the playing God instance? It's not necessarily being playing God if you're actually getting rid of cancer. It's not playing God if you're getting rid of Alzheimer's. It's not playing God if you're getting Marshall syndrome. It's not playing God to get rid of those symptoms. Now, to say that if you're going to
common sense guy, I get your point. And you can go ahead and follow up after I say this. It's one way to get rid of it, like we got rid of polio. It's another way to get rid of it by manipulating DNA. And now go ahead, sir.
Yeah, but manipulating the DNA is actually getting rid of it from a genetic phase, meaning that it will no longer be passed down genetically ever again.
But just to point out that, you know, playing God is really a sentence that's mostly seen in sort of the light of how much knowledge we have. Like if you go back 500 years, then, you know, stem cell technology would definitely have been seen as playing God.
Sure.
Well, it was in America because, you know, that's one of the reasons that they banned it.
Yes, it was.
The thing about
quick point to make. Memes asked, should we be playing God? The answer obviously is no, but back when we were basically toddlers, boiling water to heal wounds or clean them out, rather, was playing God. And
exactly my point.
We were.
No, that's stretching a point.
Yeah, no. But what she's getting at is that the more knowledge we get, the less, the higher the standard is of what playing God would be.
I'm going against my own stance, but the point that I'm making is we're humans and we're fucking stupid to a point. I mean, no matter how smart we get, we will always be...
Shirati was still psychologically, we're still the primitive chasing down the
but this is where the transition towards the singularity or the transhumanism is going to be part of that augmentation, which is where you have, say, for example, in fact, you could stop at this point where you have, say, a neural lace in your brain, which enhances, and so we would actually be able to compete with, our own brains, and hopefully they will be superior because the neural lace would act as a support to our actual creativity and everything else. It would, it would be an access port or whatever to information or whatever.
No. I don't want you guys to move on too far because I've been trying to say something here. The thing is, though, we might know how to manipulate DNA, which we do, but we don't know what that manipulation will do. So until we get the knowledge of what it will do, maybe test it on some rats or some shit for, I don't know, 30 years. And then talk.
They do.
All right?
But they do. They are doing.
They are.
Wait, is that
that's what I was going to say. They are already doing that.
They're testing it on monkeys. They're testing it on all kinds of primates and stuff.
That's fine. Don't test it on me, is what I'm saying. All right? That's it. Like,
there's one of the things
I just want to point out that I feel that you're being racist right now.
How about if they offer you $250,000 for each of your kids, $250,000 per kid, how many of you are you willing to forfeit?
Were you
Rumpelstiltskin experiments?
Dude,
for my kids,
I'm not answering that shit on air. My email address is maddodgeproductions@gmail. I'm kidding.
One thing I want to say, the genetic manipulation thing, getting rid of cancer, right? Noble thing, but we'll get rid of these genes that cause cancer or this disease or that disease. Thing is, the genes that are causing that disease are also doing something else somewhere else. They could be growing your toes or your eyes.
Genes,
they're different genes completely. They're different genes completely. They're different genes completely.
Here's the thing, though. You guys,
you're wrong, Batman. I know what you mean.
You guys.
Hang on. No, furry's trying to have a go again.
Well, no. You guys start manipulating.
Now you're stomping on her.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say something real quick. you start manipulating with DNA, how do you know what genes are exactly connected to in the freak
Because
cases
we've already sequenced
a child
We've got a
HIV
gene now.
and it gets
We've got a
cured?
map.
Because we've
Well, gene
sequenced the
sequencing.
genome
One
Look
already.
at
up,
a time. I can't
up the-
hear what anyone's saying.
look up the Glaxo Wellcome gene sequencing experiments.
Exactly.
That's
We've
all you
got the
need to
human
do.
genome map, yes.
Yeah,
What I was trying to say was genes don't work individually. Genes to produce an effect, DNA works in like groups. Different genes come together to perform one job, and then the same genes will go into different combinations to do another job.
Yeah, but that's an interesting point, because we know that our bodies are supposed to have, for example, E. coli, but if that E. coli is misplaced, then we would get really sick.
And as Ajax said in the chat,
If
gene
they-
is one part of the mechanism.
If they knew how to nail down the freak gene that combats HIV, we would have a cure. But they can't nail it down. Therefore, you can't tell me they sequenced it. Don't fuck with me, dude.
The thing with HIV is that it's actually adapting to every time we find something that could look like a cure, it's adapting to it.
Well, you need a larger sample.
That's because it's a virus. Viruses evolve
very quickly.
Yeah,
frighteningly.
Well, there's also the question of, and again, I think MC brought this one up, which was good. Who's going to be the last one into the matrix? I mean, how can you trust who's actually controlling it? It's not necessarily about what you have. It's also going to be who's in charge.
Yeah.
But how do we know that we're not?
And so
in
they
the
tell
matrix already?
everybody. Well, all right. That's a totally separate issue. But I mean, if everyone's saying, "Oh, come and join us," even if it, we know that it really, really works and it's all fine and dandy and everything's going to be sweetness and light. How do we know that we're not being sent in there so they can just sit outside and enjoy all of the actual natural experience?
Okay.
Also, who's going to maintain the equipment? I mean, I suppose robots at that point.
Well, no, I wouldn't trust AI to maintain us. But no, James Maxwell, the hamster, the ginger hamster. How are you doing tonight?
Mr.
Man,
Hamster.
Where do you stand on transhumanism? Do you want to be a fucking robot or in the Matrix? How do you feel about this?
You want to be a virtual hamster?
He's a hamster. Him and his buddies will power it on their wheels.
Actually, I really don't give a shit. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
I wanted to pull up something MC mentioned about totalitarian countries. And your consciousness is constantly uploading and downloading from the internet. They can ensure perfect loyalty by manipulating your memories and your emotions during the upload-download sequence. So they'll make different memories more important to you and other ones less important, and that will change your entire personality. So everybody in that country will be unswervingly loyal to the regime.
Batman. That's what I was saying about electronic pulses to your brain directly can create a reaction. They had tests where this woman fucking was getting shocked directly into certain parts of her brain, and she fucking ended up asking the psychiatrist to marry her. Like, he literally fucking programmed her to fucking fall in love with him within 15 minutes.
I find that hard to believe, but no one here would
Oh,
probably
you
right.
can do that without the electrodes. It's called a bank account.
Yeah. Well, nice. But Cabby, you've seen the documentary I'm talking about and the footage. Back me up on that one.
Which one? Which documentary?
The thing is, you don't even need to be backed up on the documentary. It's quite evident.
Minds of Men. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they've been doing these things for an awful long time. I mean, we're going back into. I mean, it actually goes back, into the 1800s. Where they were stimulating brains even back then and seeing people, fingers twitch and stuff like that. So they knew they could stimulate the brain. And then since, I mean, that's why you look at Joseph Mengele and all of his fucking experiments, you know, the crazy fucker. And he was that lunatic in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, he was, you know, they've been doing this stuff for an awful long time. It's not like it's a recent invention. I mean, it's been a long time in the making. And God knows where they actually are with it in terms of what they can actually do in the laboratory.
Yeah, and that was my argument on the Redeye the other night. Like, really, MC, you want to say the CIA ain't still doing this shit? Fuck off. They were messing around with remote viewing, for God's sake. And guess what? They got good results from it. So, blow your mind, right? Like, people can actually see shit that they're not standing next to. Tell me how that works. But I'm looking at the chat here. We got Tema in there. How you doing, Tema? She says... God damn it, where is it? Okay, how can you have any sort of true intelligence without awareness of the self, though? Go ahead, panel.
What is self to be defined? Yeah, what is self to be defined first?
Well,
is self knowing that you're alive, or is self knowing that you're human? Well, what's the difference in that? Because if you look at something take for instance using a film, you take for instance using RoboCop. Now I'm using this as a specific example for this reason. You had so many people at the beginning that couldn't fit into the RoboCop identity, so to speak, because as soon as they were uploaded into the computer or into the robot, they were not human anymore. So they didn't want to, so they committed suicide. Yep. The only reason why Alex Murphy was supposed to have been able to be accepted is because his duty was more important to him than his personal self, apparently.
I've used that example myself. CSG on a couple of occasions, and the thing is, it works on multiple issues too.
Plus CSG, they did mess about with his mind, but that
was in 2. That wasn't in 1. That was in 2.
In the first one, when they first did it, they messed about with his mind. They blocked his memories for one thing, but they kept his sense of duty and stuff like that.
They blocked most of his memories. They didn't block all of his memories. They blocked most of his memories, and then they put blockers in place, and then they put in particular codes. But that's not actually changing his brain. That's blocking parts of his brain off.
Oh yeah, I agree. But in
RoboCop 2, they reprogram his brain, and then he freaks out
again.
But what Tim was on about, I think, wasn't so much intelligence as sentience, and I think she meant self-awareness, which is being aware that you actually exist. The most intelligent computer in the world is not aware that it actually exists.
Yeah, that's fine, but I think that she was actually meaning the actual self-awareness of self, as in, are we human? What does it take for us to be human?
So hang on, so is that sentience? I mean,
yes, it's, I would call it self-awareness. The fact that we know who we are and what we want, and we have a conscience, so to say. And most of
Some
us,
people do.
Maybe Hamster here is a sociopath. I don't know, but some of us have a conscience. I'm joking, James. Unmute, man.
That's an interesting one, because the conscience and again, guilt and things like that. Again, how can you simulate? If you are depending on, I suppose neural networks different than a serial computer, but.
Well, yeah, but you're still correct, though, Cabby. It's still a subjective matter of conscience. It's not objective.
See, I thought we were just hating on him because he was a ginger, and gingers aren't supposed to have soul.
No, okay, common sense guy. Do you have a voice in your head that tells you, hey, I shouldn't rob this bank right now when I'm walking up there with my
but the point is, though, man.
No, because I'm not
let me answer, please. The point is that, yes, my voice may tell me not to rob a bank, but there's other people's that tell them to rob the bank, which means it's subjective to me what I do with my conscience, and it's subjective to them what they do with it. There is no such thing as an objective conscience. It's all subjective to the person.
No, there are people know. I think conscience is it's an extrapolation of social instincts. Social instincts. Social instincts in a social animal tend to make you behave in a way that's better for the group as a whole.
That's called training.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
what
my-
you do with
Well,
children.
is it training or is it sent down through your DNA? Certain family
No,
traits are
it's
sent
not.
down through the DNA. Are you telling me there's an alcohol gene? There's not.
No,
It's
no,
just
but
that
you're asking
your
about
great
something
grandfather
subjective.
drank, your grandfather drank, your
Oh,
dad
no.
drank, and now you drink.
Mad
I
Dog,
mean,
you're asking something that's subjective, and then you're trying to say that it's something genetic. The thing is with the thing that is conscience, even if you want to try and make it as a social construct, it is still subjective. And it still has to be a selection of people that
Yeah,
agree on an objective nature of your
the
subjective
social-
conscience.
Okay,
Hence-
okay,
You're
but
actually
Can you
raising
let me
a
finish?
very interesting point of personality disorders. Because addictive behaviors is technically a personality disorder. So how would you combat that when it comes to the Matrix and all that jazz? You know, every person has their own unique personality, and that can be quite conflicting. And it also comes down to the sense of morality and such. Because if you don't have that perception of this is bad, or you don't have that impulse control,
But okay, so I
to maniacs, for example, how do you go about that? That's a very good point to bring up.
I think part of what we call our conscience, feeling guilty about, it comes down to empathy as well.
Well, my idea.
What if a person's a sociopath and has no empathy? Then what?
The sociopath is the sociopath is the exception to the rule. But I would say a conscience is kind of passed
there's
down.
also psychopath.
I think the conscience is passed down generation by generation. It's either learned, which I'm not saying it's genetic or learned. I'm saying one or the other. But
can I ask you a question, Amanch? Can I ask you a question, Amanch?
If I can shoot in for a second, because I think this is an interesting point from a more philosophical standpoint. How do you actually know that the people around you are conscious?
Yeah. Well, conscious. Well, you know that if they're moving around. Generally speaking, unconscious people don't move.
No.
No, Rat's talking about confirmation bias. Rat's talking about confirmation biases and how can you confirm that other people are alive and it's not just a simulation. He's talking about confirmation bias.
Is it?
Yeah, so to ask the question in a little bit more pointed way, how do you know that the people that you see and move around you are actually conscious in the same way that you feel yourself as a conscious being?
They will be. I mean, they're having their own unique life experience. I mean, this is the reason. If you try to transplant yourself into somebody else's brain, you'd go mad because it wouldn't make any sense. It would, every opinion, every thought,
hypothetical
wouldn't make any sense.
Can't do that.
No.
That also actually comes back full circle to what Cabby was saying earlier of the neuroclusters and increasing overall intellect and other stuff. One thing that I find interesting is people like myself who have issues with being in social settings and other such have extremely high IQs. They just don't know what to do with it. So, that's another thing of your brain compensating for an overabundance in one part by dumbing down in other parts.
Yeah,
that would explain why generally unintelligent.
If you were to enter my brain, you'd go, how the fuck do I speak?
Well,
the thing so much sparks going
Let
on.
her finish.
Oh, this, that, something else. Let's go.
I honestly thought she had. Sorry about that, Ferry. But
that
would explain why people who are generally what would you classify as unintelligent seem to be remarkably good in social environments.
Can I quickly ask Mad Dodge a question of his previous point? Because Mad Dodge was trying to suggest that a conscience is, should we say, a genetic or is passed down. Does that mean that anybody that was ever a criminal is always going to be a criminal because you're saying that they're genetically going to be passed down? Or does it change?
Like,
Okay,
common
here's
sense,
the thing.
why can't it be both?
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, man.
He's asking Maddox.
I'm related to Pretty Boy Floyd. I'm going to be doing a series about him here soon. He was a bank robber in the 30s. Got shot in the back by Purvis, FBI agent, fucking asshole. But anyway, I digress. No, that didn't mean I was going to be a bank robber. Have I messed up and been in trouble with the law a few times? Yeah, I have. So, does it get passed down? I don't know. You be the judge.
Could
Well, I just was the judge. That's why I asked you the question.
Hang on.
That's why I asked you the question, man.
Could I
No,
jump in?
this is conflation. No, this is a major conflation of 2 points. This idea that circumstance and life experience are going to have a massive effect on your personality and your character. What you're exposed to, how you're treated, whether you're abused as a kid, and all these other things. Now, the idea that everything is genetic. You do have a certain element of wetware in the brain, where there's going to be predeterminism. I mean, we know that, right? That you're going to have a predisposition to certain kind of things. Now, those things can be settled if they're caught early on, right? If they're identified, and so that you can do positive reinforcement in alternative ways, so those neurons end up being neutralized. But the idea that it's just, well, my great granddad was a psycho, so therefore I must be a psycho, that's got nothing to do with it.
No, you're right. No, you're right. You're right, Cabby. And what I would follow this up with is, okay, I've been watching a lot of crime shit when I go to bed. Like, I'll just throw on documentary on YouTube and let shit play, right? And there's this series, was he born a killer? Some people are mistreated and end up being a serial killer. All right. You could say their environment created that. Other people were born rich and they still ended up a serial killer. They were born rich and loved and had everything they needed psychologically.
But Maddox, the thing is,
so why did they become a killer? Is that genetic? Is that just in their head?
I'm just going to interject here. There's been studies that show that you can detect psychopath or sociopath tendencies in a human being as early as the age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
So
if I could
just learn how to
basic behavioral studies
about the point about are you born innocent or not? I obviously believe that you're not born into this world. And let's take the terrorists of Norway that killed more than 70 people a couple of years ago. At some point, he was an innocent child. Now,
when does he get released from prison? By the way, you guys don't keep him in for life. Anyway, sorry, Rat.
He's actually gonna stay for life, so that's fine. But okay, so at some point he was completely innocent. He didn't walk around his entire life with the thoughts that I'm gonna kill 70 something people, and it wasn't fatalistic to his world that it was going to be that way. So these things, obviously, nature and nurture have something to say about your outcome.
Yeah, it wasn't who he was.
Yes,
but it's
but Rat.
Yeah.
But Rat, there's also the element of when you're in the womb, as you're developing, poor diets, lack of like poor nutrition, things like that. I mean, these can all have effects. Like if you smoke, if you take drugs and things like that, they are all going to have an effect on the development of the brain of the child. So that is not. So those are also, I mean, those are real. I mean, that brain would have not developed in that way had those external influences not occurred.
Thank you for putting that in there, because I was literally about to ask you: is that genetics that's passed down, or is that conditions that happen?
No, that's the point. But that's the point I'm making. Is that is?
No, I heard. That's why I said thank you for clarifying at the end.
Yeah, it's the wetware of the brain. But you got to remember, there is a fundamental. The brain does have an actual map, a general map, and that's the reason a baby will automatically suckle. It's a natural instinct, and that's built into the brain itself. So there are certain parts of the brain which are already predetermined in the DNA as to how they're going to form, and that's just for survival instincts. I mean, look at kangaroos, right? They get born. No, it's wetware. They get born, and then they have to find their way up into into the mother's pouch. Right? I mean, that is obviously pre-programmed into them. There's no way that they just suddenly, come up with that idea themselves.
It's for marsupials, yes.
Interesting thing I remember reading is that apparently your DNA changes throughout your life.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, it changes every 7 years. You are a completely different person every 7 years.
No, that's cell replacement. That's not DNA replacement.
You're actually
became a Republican. No,
I mean, not
that's
wildly
cell replacement.
change.
Well, they actually found that happens in women, because women who have sex with a man, they actually take on some of the DNA from sperm into their actual body, and their body's DNA changes.
Can you please fight that for me?
So
I have heard that theory.
How much sex of these
I would just like a source on that.
Wait a second. So you're saying that men are infecting women?
Fucking hell. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
that's what she was saying.
That's how they get pregnant.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, what were you going to say back?
But okay, so he's not responding. So I'm taking this opportunity. We were talking about how a mass murderer. We were talking about what was the guy's name? MADDS?
Which one? There's been a lot of them. You got to sit it down.
The bank robber.
Pretty Boy Floyd.
Pretty Boy Floyd.
Charles Arthur Floyd.
So we were talking about him and in the way that you shared some genes with him. So would you be then determined to be unlawful? Now, there's an interesting point to that, which Sam Harris points out in his book Free Will, which is that if you were to change, or if you were to switch every atom of your body with his, so that your life basically became his life, then you would be the bank robber, basically. You wouldn't be able to change any of the outcomes of his life.
Oh, so if the external conditions were the same, I would react in the same way, is what you're saying.
If absolutely every external condition, as well as every internal condition, were the same.
The thing is with what Sam Harris says on his book is that he doesn't actually clarify that if you have the first and second and the third thing that all link together, and then you change on the fourth, he doesn't account for that. He just says that if everything is exactly the same, then you are preconditioned to be doing the same thing. He doesn't say that if you change a choice, then that will change.
The idea from possibly the
here's the thing.
The idea possibly from the way you explain it falls apart for me, because if you switched every atom in your body with every atom in his body, basically you'd be where he was standing.
Cloning him, exactly.
Hang on.
The issue is that this doesn't come down to choice, because we don't actually have free will in his view, and incidentally mine as well. But my point is that the conditions that we're in actually determines a lot of what we're doing and the choices we make.
Actually, I think
on a scale that we don't manage to register ourselves.
Actually, I think we do have free will, because if we didn't have free will, we wouldn't be able to override our own instincts, and human beings can do that.
Are we? Yeah. Or is our base wetware, Cabbage said, is our starting point? We have our whole life experience, everything that happens to the particles that make us up, and then at that point, maybe you were just conditioned to that. I mean, I don't want to believe that. I mean, I tend to think we can tend in a better direction.
Yeah, you just debunked yourself, though, Memes, because you said nature than nurture.
Yeah, but that's the thing. What they're saying is, if you basically just took every atom of the person, of this Wild Bill Hickok, Or
You
whoever
fully replicate and then place it under
exactly.
the exact same conditions.
That's what I mean. If you basically, if you photocopied the person, then of course you're going to end up with the same person.
But would that degradation principle apply? Or
No, you're just being a dick.
We're talking about mimicking. I'm not. I'm just saying. It's every atom and stuff.
Not you.
All right.
Well, are we just going to end up recycling people and then re-replicating them? Is that where we're going?
See, this is why you don't speak, Fiend. This is why we don't let you speak.
Now, I know that the free will debate is sort of something that we could do at another time, but I would definitely be interested in doing that with some of you guys.
Definitely.
Because I think it's a very interesting topic that doesn't really affect my day-to-day life, but I think it's interesting nonetheless.
Well, actually, you'd be completely wrong on that one.
Rabbit hole.
Well, I was just going to say, you'd be completely wrong on that.
You don't even know what he's going to say yet.
Well, can I finish what my point is then? And then I might be able to explain why I said you can't do that. Because it would affect you, because it would be a choice of being free will, or if it's predetermined. So, of course it affects you. I'm going to go now anyway, because I'm going to go to bed. Night.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that. If it's
Bye,
fine.
CSJ. As far as making an exact copy of somebody, like Meme said, that would not be the same person. I don't care if it is the exact same everything. It is not the same person.
Why not? Sure, already. No, wait a minute. No. Wait a minute.
I just want to respond to what Common Sense guy said before he left.
I do want you to in just a second. Sherardi jumped in. I want to address that. Is that because it doesn't have a soul? Other than that, why wouldn't it be?
Okay, I have nothing in the field as far as souls. I don't give a rat's ass. Okay, Dodd, somebody makes an exact copy of you. Is that you, or are you you?
Can I ask a question on this one, Sherardi? By an exact copy, do you mean that at the point of duplication, this copy has all the same memories, emotional,
exact same memory, right down to the very first memory that you can remember.
Can I answer this one? I would say that at the point of duplication, Dodge and his duplicate are exactly the same person, but as time progresses, they have different experiences. They become different people.
Yeah.
Duh.
So, just very quickly, because I was sort of challenged on the thought that whether or not we have free will doesn't really affect my day-to-day life. I just wanted to point out that what I meant by it is that I live as if I have free will. So,
you mad fool.
So even though I don't actually believe in free will as a concept, I live my life as if I do.
Nobody has free will. Don't lie.
No, let Rat
I don't
finish.
believe that free will actually exists. Now, to go to the point with the copy, the MADDS versus the copy of MADDS. I would say that MADDS to MADDS himself, he would be himself while the clone would be the clone. But to the rest of us, for that split second until they start getting different experiences, we wouldn't be able to assert the original from the duplicate.
Yeah, we couldn't differentiate.
Yeah.
Well, no,
but
and
that's not what you said.
well, no, and real quick, Sir Blumpkin in the chat says, "Who says we have souls?" I never said we have souls, but that is a real argument when you're debating this. That needs to be said. I am an atheist. That argument needs to be fucking said. If you believe the human beings have souls, then you can't duplicate a human being and duplicate a soul, can you? Can a soul inhabit two separate vessels?
We don't know.
I've got a really good question here from the chat. Oz asked me, are savants' brains pre-programmed for it? It's again, this is kind of like where certain brains have predispositions to, especially things like pattern recognition and things like that. The way that the wetware gets created, during the formation of the brain
later in life. Did you
Yeah,
realize?
exactly. I know, but I'm just. Apparently, I'm the one who steps on everyone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right.
Go on.
Yeah, is it good? So yeah, at the end of the day, we're looking at exactly the same problem: is as to whether or not. But the thing is, what would you say about a savant? It's the same kind of thing as with autistics. I mean, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now, if you're going to look at a singularity aspect, and again, what are we putting into this? Into this thing. Into this central aspect? Are we just adding all of these aspects of human nature and then trying to make a mess out of this quagmire? Or are we going, this is why I said about the difference between a distributed network as opposed to a centralized one, because that would give you autonomy. And it would also mean that you would, like the potential contamination of something like a nihilist or a sociopath or a psychopath would not end up contaminating you. Unless you had some personal engagement. Well, yeah, exactly. And it would mean that unless you personally engaged or interacted with those people, then, the response would, so whatever would happen would happen.
Cabbage, basically, in your idea, you'd basically, it's be like your mind is permanently hooked to the internet, but you decide what comes in, what goes out.
So okay.
Well, possibly, I suppose.
But we're sort of in a different place now, but I want to ask MADDS about something, because you were talking about a soul. So
I was saying, can a soul, if there is a soul, because I'm not sure there is, but if there is, can it inhabit vessels?
How do you define a soul?
Well, I would define it by the experiment that was done where a soul weighs, 0.9 megagram or milligrams or some shit. And it only inhabits the human being. They did tests on dogs and it didn't happen. The test was done on a full-size weight where, even the excrement that leaves when you die would be weighted. And there was an absence of weight to the human body. There wasn't to a dog or anything else. So I would say there is somewhat proof of a soul. Am I saying I believe in the soul completely? No, I'm not. Not at all.
No,
but
I'm not trying to ask you like a gotcha question or anything like that. I just, because in your example we need to just distinguish what a soul actually is.
Well, the soul would be you, right?
No, we have to recognize whether a soul actually exists to begin with, don't we? Surely.
That is why I brought up the scientific proof that it does exist, and that's the only scientific proof I got.
I think that experiment got debunked, and
did they debunk it? Because I don't remember.
It only had a single sample size. There was only one time where that was allowed to happen, and I thought the church or something.
Did they ever reproduce it? Did they ever contradict it?
It was done by Christian scientists as well. Yeah.
No, actually, no. The doctor was not a Christian, actually.
Yeah. Okay, but my point is, from a let's say that a soul is real, just for this hypothetical, then obviously you would be you because you have your soul. But if we go with the knowledge which we do have, that we can't scientifically prove that there is a soul, then the problem becomes a lot more advanced.
Well,
it doesn't even matter if you can prove it, because the problem's already there, because you have people who believe in it, and that's why I even brought it up. So if you have people that believe in it, then you have to, assume that the soul is a fucking issue in the whole fucking thing. And so if you assume that, then, no, wait a minute. If you assume that, then if you're copying yourself, can a soul inhabit two vessels at one time? I think most Christians or Catholics or even Jews would say no, it fucking can't. Even Muslims,
I
I
don't
think.
know. Kabbalists would probably say they could.
But here's the thing: these people wouldn't be able to tell which version of you inhabited the soul.
But
It would
we
be
are
no, it
focusing.
would be the one that was birthed. There would be one born naturally that would have the soul.
I would say that both of you claim to be the born one.
Well, the issue is two beings, one soul. What if there is another soul floating around that decides to inhabit the blank canvas that is the being that was created?
So it's like dark matter or something. It's like there's some quantum, like spiritual entanglement.
There's also
Yeah.
an interesting.
You know that.
A little bit off into a weird corner.
There's also an interesting physical.
Well, no, because I'm gonna take it a bit weirder as well, because we're looking at it purely from a Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic religious idea. But if you actually look at the Japanese, for example, they believe that this is the reason they like robots so much, and they're into an awful lot of strange shit. They believe that machines have souls. That anything can have a soul.
So do some Native Americans.
But
there is a little known idea. I don't think you can call it a religion, but it postulates that there is only one soul. It ignores space time, and it lives every life.
Okay, so there is a common thing in Eastern philosophy that the self is an illusion. And we have to sort of solve this illusion in order to get to reunite with the sort of world soul.
We have to beat the game.
But if the self is an illusion, who's having the illusion?
Yeah, that's. Now you're getting into a sort of deep layer more.
I think therefore I am.
We've already committed extreme blasphemy. We're already at the 7th layer of hell.
It's absolutely an interesting question, but I would say that these are the kinds of questions that yogis and gurus of like many years have actually been struggling with.
I have a question of, can the human body be sustained without a soul?
That's assuming there is a soul.
Yeah, exactly. You have to identify if there is one, and you can't.
Well, no, and here's the thing, though.
Oh God! Please don't do one of your dodgy jokes.
Here's the thing. In the chat.
Please
go ahead, Batman.
I was gonna say maybe sociopaths are people without souls.
No, we all know it's the gingers, but no. I'm looking at that.
I opened that one.
Okay, but
Aunt Jack. No, wait a minute. Aunt Jack in the chat says not just machines. Everything has souls to the Japanese. And that is true with the Native Americans too. But my argument would be the test spelled out that dogs don't have a soul. Sorry, all dogs don't go to heaven. My bad.
Lies.
I hate to break it to you. Sorry. Merry Christmas. But no, the thing is though, the human body did lose weight, and you have had people with near life or near death experiences come back and say shit. What do you think? It's
there have been experiments done where they put cards on the top of the cabinets in operating theatres, and people who've experienced near death experiences have not seen those cards when they've been floating.
Yeah.
There's been
but I'm sorry, but there haven't been tons of them, and they're all very dubious. Whenever you hear about them, it's always that fucking freaky people who go, "Oh yeah, we proved this because of this situation." Well, who thought? What a doctor trying to resuscitate someone suddenly thought to himself, "Hang on, I'll just pick the jack of diamonds and the ace of spades, and let's slap that on top, and let's see what happens."
Thanks,
you believe in the out of body experiences, do you?
No, I'm just saying it's bollocks.
That's what these experiments were saying. You can't.
They're not experiment. How can you experiment? You don't know when people are going to fucking die.
Deliberately induce out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, okay, Batman. Okay, fair enough. But the fact is, some of these people have been able to say
Talking
when they were
about dying.
put. No, wait a minute. When they were put under anesthesia, knocked out, they recognize themselves floating above their body, and they could tell you exactly what the doctor fucking did to them. You're telling me that's a hallucination? You're telling me that's fake?
I want to
come on.
jump in on
your senses are not disconnected when you're under the knife.
Yeah, here's the thing.
I've been in surgery and I don't remember a fucking thing about it. I didn't have an out of body experience.
Here's the thing. When you're what's it called, clinically dead, your brain is not deactivated at that time. Your brain is being filled up with a lot of hormones.
So those hormones, Rat, make you float above your body and tell you exactly where they're
No, I
coming
tell
from?
you what, a fucking tab of acid will do. A tab of acid will do that for you.
Yep.
No, it won't. I've taken 5 tabs of acid. I never floated above my own body.
Like I said,
let me get to my point. Your brain is being filled with chemicals, and your senses haven't stopped working. You can still listen. You can still hear things that go around you. And the exact you floating above your body, yes, that's an hallucination. However, the experiences that you might feel or hear and stuff like that, might actually happen. So that's the thing about the brain. We don't actually know what the brain is capable of.
thing is, MC, Mad, if you're floating above outside of your body, how can you look down at it? You don't have any eyes.
The interesting thing is out-of-body experiences while you're still fully alive and conscious.
Yeah, like I said, out-of-body experiences can be deliberately induced. That's how they do these experiments.
And there's also cases of people who are just plain insane, and they just go off and do it regardless as to whether they're induced or not.
And also, it's the point that your brain might be playing tricks on you, that you remember an out-of-body experience at a later time. Like I have a personal story to this. When I was very young, like in the, let's say, 7 years old, I was hanging out with my older sister, and we were doing some stuff that I wasn't allowed to at an age of 7, and I can clearly remember that from a sort of third-person perspective. Now, of course, that's not what actually happened. I experienced it from my own view, but in sort of the past time, my brain has sort of given me this mental image of what happened from a third-person perspective.
I know exactly what you're on about. That's happened to me. But the out-of-body experience thing, when somebody's near-death situation, they've had reports all over the world about this. But it's interesting how every time the person's experience corresponds exactly with their culture, culture of origin. Mm-hmm. Muslims will experience a different out-of-body experience to Christians, Taoists, Hindus, the lot.
Yeah.
That proves.
Well, isn't that how your life
to me?
is?
That proves to me it's an illusion. It's brought up.
No, that doesn't prove anything. First off, I don't believe in it.
So there's no.
First off, I don't believe in a deity. But if there was a deity, at least of the Abrahamic religions, he would show himself or herself. However, they would to the sect that they were fucking showing it to.
Mad, at this point, your brain is starved of oxygen. It's slowly dying. You're hallucinating like crazy, and your subconscious is going to throw everything at you. So you are going to fucking say God.
Well, it's like when people say, right now, Maddox, hang on a sec, hang on, Maddox.
Maddox said something that I thought was really interesting, because you said that God, let's say in this in this particular setting, God would reveal himself to his subject in the manner they would know him. Do I understand you correctly?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I said. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you are a Christian, then the Muslim's faith is wrong. So if the Christian God would be the correct God, why would he reveal himself as Allah to someone?
They are all the Abrahamic religion, pretty
here's
much.
one-
And
Okay, so what about Buddha?
well, no, and
Or
you're
the Taoists.
confusing my ex-Catholicism with me believing now.
Listen, the Muslims do not believe in the crucifixion, and the crucifixion is the cornerstone of.
No, they do. Yes, they do. They believe it happened and he was a prophet. Yeah, they do.
They believe in Jesus. Prophet, not the Messiah. That's the difference.
The Muslims do not believe that Jesus was executed on the cross.
I'll have to look that up. I'm not going to die on that hill.
Yeah, but either
I'll look
way, they recognize him as a prophet.
Yeah.
They don't recognize him as the Messiah.
Christianity, you have to recognize the crucifixion, and you have to recognize Jesus as the Son of God, not just a prophet.
Well, that was a big argument within the Christian community.
No, please. That's my point. Why would God reveal himself in something that he knows to be the false version of himself?
Yeah.
In that case, it's just sadistic.
Yeah, I mean,
can I give you another example?
I was going to say.
I want to give you another example of how the brain kind of just splurges when it goes into these sort of states of trauma. A lot of people say they saw their life flashing before their eyes, right? They didn't see God or anything, but they saw their life flash before their eyes. Okay, now that's just another example of, a particular reaction to, catastrophic, physical trauma.
It happened to me once. I nearly drowned. Didn't last for long because I was only 8 at the time. But no, I'm not making a joke, Cabbage. It actually did.
Well, no, it happened to me. I was climbing up a fucking short little fucking mountain, and the root I was holding on to broke, and I fell. And at the bottom was a road with concrete, obviously, but there was concrete and rocks right on the edge where I was going to hit. But I hit a tree halfway down, thank God. But yeah, my life flashed before my eyes. I know what you're talking about. That's an endorphin rush. That's not necessarily an out-of-body experience, though.
No. But you have people who've gone. No, it isn't. There are different people. When you look at the near-death experiences, or people who've been resuscitated, like you've got certain people who see a white light and things like that. You've got different people who see all kinds of things. You've got people who think that they've gone to hell and come back again. And there are people who just see their life flash before their eyes. There are plenty of different symptoms of these sort of like traumas that occur during, a resuscitation process, or, obviously dying process is going to be when it happens.
You've also got a very stressed out brain, which, allows you to see 3 blocks outside of you. And that's quite an interesting experience.
That's another interesting thing about the brain, how it reacts in stressful situations. You notice when you got that flight or fight time, everything slows down.
Yeah, adrenaline. It's an amazing thing.
Well, yeah, it's incredible. The systems that have been provided us.
Yeah.
Well, no, absolutely, and
in general does some very interesting things to the brain as the brain's literally dying from stress.
Yep.
Well, no, absolutely, and everybody in the chat still that's left with us. I threw the Hangout link in there. We're gonna chat a little bit after the show. At least I plan on sticking around. I'm sure Cabby does.
There's one.
Yeah, no. You want to talk about one more thing before we go? Because we're hitting 3 hours, so I'm about ready to wrap it up.
Something I heard about this guy. He'd been in a deep coma for a few months. When he recovered, he was amazed that he'd only been in for a few months, because to him, he'd lived like 10, 15 years in this coma-induced fantasy. He thought he'd been unconscious for a lot longer.
Yeah, but how many times have you fallen asleep for 5 minutes and like woken up fully refreshed, thinking that you've had about an hour and like 2 hours, 3 hours sleep?
Oh,
It's like, holy shit, it's only been a half an hour.
Yep.
It's quality of sleep, not quantity.
Yeah, absolutely. And have a good night, Rat. Like I said, everybody in the chat, if you guys want to join, there's a hangout link. We're going to be hanging out for a little bit. Rat's bouncing out. I don't know if the other guys are staying, other than Cabby here. But,
Ratty.
I'll see you guys later. I have to get up in a couple hours.
See you, Rat.
All right.
But
we're
gonna...
Good to see you.
Can I ask you a question before you
Good
go?
to see you,
Are you King Rat or Dr. Rat?
I would say I'm royalty, so...
No, it's King Rat. No, that's Neil Gaimanson. No, what? Fucking hell, what was the name? King Rat.
Neil
Who
Gaiman?
wrote that book? Yeah, Neil. Yes.
I'm forgetting who wrote the other one, Dr. Rat, but that was a good book.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that one.
All right, Your Majesty. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
On a very quick note, I finally released a new video today. Go check it out, everyone that's watching.
Oh, cool.
I basically go off on the American media because I think it sucks.
Oh, well, you'll get no argument from Mad Dodge Productions Incorporated, as Jacob in the chat likes to call it. Yeah, no argument.
By the way, if you want to have a pop at the British one as well, please, by all means, give the BBC a good kicking.
Yeah,
religious celebration for those that practice it.
Well, you guys have a great evening. I'll see you guys later.
Absolutely.
Take care of yourself, mate.
And no, we're gonna have a different format coming up soon. I got somebody coming on to help out. We're gonna start moderating a little bit more. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more without yelling over each other. Also, like I said, we're gonna hang out in the after party. If you want to join, hit the hangout link. Like, subscribe, share this motherfucker all around. And Wednesday we're gonna have repeal the 19th debate. That should be fun. The debate will be on Wednesday next week instead of Friday. Pinoid, Pinoid, and he's bringing a friend. We gotta find.
Pinoid has friends.
Yeah. We gotta find a con side though. I guess I've been nominated because I'm not in favor of repealing.
Look at Australia's politics. Oh my God! Kill them all. Women shouldn't be in power. Oh.
I tell you what. Look at Sweden. Look what fucking women have done to Sweden.
Look what they're doing.
We have so
obviously, I don't have your guys fucking support in opposing his point of view. But good night, good luck, and don't go to fucking France. Jacob, if you're still there, the link's there, dude. You wanted to hang out in the after show? Come join us. We're out of here.
Come on, Jacob.
Peace.